There is a coldness that starts in the stomach, a slow and certain dread. It is the awe of watching a domino fall, knowing the chain is already in motion. Every ordinary choice now carries the weight of a secret truth. So take that first breath and step into the moment it all becomes real. Auntie Song, goodbye. Bai Lian saw Jai Shaojun come out and politely bid farewell to Mrs. Song. Mrs. Song stood at the door, watching Bai Lian and the other person leave. She returned to her car, took out her mobile phone, and after a long while finally dialed a number. The call was answered quickly. Mrs. Song! It was Beicheng. Mrs. Song instructed the driver to start the car. Mr. Bai, I just saw Alien. She came to Beicheng to register her residence on the 10:35 train. Once she returns, she will no longer be part of the Bai family. She's just a child in temperament. Would you want the butler to pick her up first? On the other end of the phone, Beicheng put down his pen. He looked out of the window. It had been nearly 10 days since the butler reported Bai Lian's departure, and he had not heard from Bai Lian since then. In the end, Bai Lian had taken the apprenticeship token with her, a trait quite like her mother's. She would rather ruin it than give anyone else an advantage. In fact, over the 10 days, half of Beicheng's anger had dissipated. But thank you, Mrs. Song, for informing me of this matter. Beicheng retracted his gaze, but Bai Lian is already 18. She can decide for herself whether to stay or leave. After speaking, he hung up the phone. The Bai family was large. Supporting one more Bai Lian was not difficult. But Beicheng was also aware of the conflict between Bai Lian and Bai Shaojun. If Bai Lian, who had taken the apprenticeship token, were to be brought back now, Bai Shaojun would inevitably feel uncomfortable. Beicheng was thinking long-term. Now that Bai Shaojun's future looked bright, he couldn't afford to lose the watermelon for the sake of a sesame seed like Bai Lian. So he could only act as if he hadn't received Mrs. Song's call. Today was also when he made a choice between Bai Lian and Bai Shaojun, but obviously, there was no need to choose at all. The Bai family, the grand elder, the highest in seniority at the family ancestral home, took some interest in the matter. Find an auspicious time tomorrow and remove her name. Remove it tomorrow? Of course, the grand elder pondered briefly. Make sure to let Shaojun and Shaojun know. Erasing Bai Lian's name was a minor matter. What mattered was to show her siblings the Bai family's stance. Making a simple mark to erase a name was, after all, nothing noteworthy to them. Elsewhere, although Mrs. Song had anticipated it, she still sighed softly upon hearing Beicheng's words. She had phoned Beicheng not only to inform him of Bai Lian's whereabouts, but also to see what Beicheng would decide. Mrs. Song took out her mobile phone, thinking that Song Min should be in class by now, and just sent a WeChat message. Come home early tonight. I have something to tell you. Song Min usually stayed with Bai Shaojun at the library to discuss the challenging problems of the Jiangjing preparatory camp. But when Mrs. Song wanted to see him, he would come straight home after school. When he returned, Mrs. Song, pruning her flowers, slowly began, Elle wanted to talk to you about Bai Lian. Song Min, looking indifferent, showed no change of expression upon hearing this name. Her. Yes, Mrs. Song's voice was gentle. She has officially been removed from the Bai family register. There's the engagement arranged since childhood between you and her. If you have no objections, we'll find a time to speak with the Bai family and then clarify things with Bai Lian. How about that? Song Min didn't even think about it. Whatever. Mrs. Song didn't have much of an opinion about Bai Lian. Bai Lian was good-looking. She had watched Bai Lian grow up since she was a child and had some fondness for her. But that was all. Compared to Bai Shaojun and Bai Shaojun, this fondness seemed insignificant. Mrs. Song snipped off an excess branch. Shaking her head, she thought that Bai Lian was still too young and impetuous, not understanding what was truly important. On the train, Bai Lian was also in a very good mood. Not only did she transfer her residence, but she also resolved the matter with Song Min. She was well aware that Mrs. Song had specifically stepped off the train to inquire about something. But unexpectedly, the Bai family never made an appearance from beginning to end. It was nearing 11 at night. The train finally arrived at Beicheng station. At this time, the buses had already stopped running, and even taxis were scarce near the station. The two of them exited the station and were about to look for a taxi on the roadside when, upon exiting, Bai Lian saw Jiang He squatting by the road, staring at a tree. "Why are you here?" Bai Lian approached him and then introduced him to Jai Shaojun. "This is the first friend I met when I came to Beicheng. Waiting for you. My brother hasn't come back yet." Jiang He looked up, somewhat blankly. "Hello, uncle." Jai Shaojun saw this elegant-looking kid and wasn't quite sure how to start a conversation, but unexpectedly the other party greeted him nicely. He was somewhat at a loss for what to do, so he just stuffed all the snacks he had collected for Bai Lian into Jiang He's hands. Ming Dingheng stood coolly on the side. After sending Bai Lian and Jai Shaojun back to Purist Street, Jiang He still clung to Bai Lian's hem without letting go. Ming Dingheng was used to it. Jiang He's behavior was always quirky. He reported to Jiang Fulai. Jiang He received a message on his watch and finally let go of Bai Lian's hem. By the time Jiang Fulai arrived, Bai Lian had already left. He had just come out of the lab and hadn't changed his clothes, lethargically reaching out to knock on Jiang He's car window. Jiang He held grudges and ignored him, still lying on the car window. Jiang Fulai was calm. "One saw an MTS report last time. It said that kids who stay up late don't grow tall." Jiang He, not even as tall as Jiang Fulai's waist, suddenly looked up. "Are you tired?" "I'm not tired." Jiang Fulai glanced at him casually and sincerely asked, "You shouldn't be tired either, right?" "Oh, of course not." Jiang He started talking to himself. "One mean Uncle Ming must be tired. So if he's tired, then we can go back now and let him sleep first." Ming Dingheng said expressionlessly, "Yes, young master, I'm very tired right now." Beicheng Middle School. Bai Lian rushed to catch the train on Monday, and after explaining the kinetic energy theorem once again to Jai Heng on Tuesday morning, she came to school. "Desk mate." Bai Lian twirled her pen as she turned her head to look at Yang Lin. "Can you lend me your biology notebook?" The black pen spun agilely around her fair and slender fingertips. Yang Lin was the class study representative. Her hair was black and long and her skin extremely pale, covering most of her face and neck. She wore the school uniform, long sleeves and pants, every day and seldom spoke to others. She just reached into the desk and pulled out 2 biology notebooks to give to Bai Lian. Bai Lian took them, flipped through them, and saw that the notes were very clear and clean. Inside one of them, she saw a realistic drawing of an alley lined with fresh flowers on both sides. The style of this realistic drawing was very similar to that of Jai Heng and Jai Shaojun. It seemed to be a few years old but was well preserved. Bai Lian took it out and gave it back to Yang Lin, her dark eyes reflecting Yang Lin's face. She sincerely praised, "It's very pretty." Yang Lin was stunned for a moment, then took it back. After quite a while, Bai Lian heard her softly "hmm" in response. The first class in the morning was Chinese. When Bai Lian's classmate behind her, Zhang Shi's, arrived, Lu Lingxi had already finished analyzing an ancient poem. "Report." Zhang Shi's ran to the entrance of the class, not even having had the time to zip up his school jacket. Lu Lingxi stood by the lectern, one hand resting on it, looking at Zhang Shi's, and with the other hand pointing at the clock on the wall. "Zhang Shi's, it's already our senior year, and yet you're still so lax. Class starts at 8, look. Open your eyes wide and see what time it is now." Zhang Shi's looked at the clock hanging on the wall behind him, his expression serious. 7:70. Lu Lingxi. The classmates suddenly burst into laughter energetically. Zhang Shi's touched his nose dejectedly and returned to his seat. Last night, he stayed up late squatting to snatch Yan Lu's photo book, so he got up late this morning. Seeing that his mother was still angry with his father, he helped his mother cut some flower branches until he realized he was going to be late. The class finished quickly. Lu Lingxi called Bai Lian to the office separately. "Elle saw you getting along well with Yang Lin this morning." Lu Lingxi handed a box of Band-Aids to Bai Lian and said softly, "Could you give this to her? She has a wound on the left side of her forehead." Bai Lian reached out to take it, tossing it in her hand with a cheeky smile in her eye. "Got it, but I can't promise anything." She was wearing the brand new school jacket she had just received today, her hair still tied up at the back of her head with a hairpin, and her prepossessing brows and eyes drooped as she looked quite well behaved. The blue and white school uniform didn't look bulky on her at all. Slack and casual. "It's all right, you try it," Lu Lingxi sighed, remembering something important. "Also, there's a training program for top students. It's every day after school until 8 in the evening, featuring exercises from Jiangjing University's affiliated schools." Lu Lingxi wasn't too clear on the specifics. The principal had called her on Sunday to ask if there was a transfer student named Bai Lian in her class, and just like that, it was settled. In any case, attending the training wasn't a bad thing. "Okay," Bai Lian put the Band-Aid back into the pocket of her school uniform. Returning to her seat, Bai Lian looked at Yang Lin, who was hunched over doing homework, and initiated conversation. "Desk mate." Yang Lin lifted her head slightly. Bai Lian quickly tore open a Band-Aid, lifted Yang Lin's hair, and accurately stuck it on before letting her hair fall back over it. The whole movement was smooth and fluid. It took a while for Yang Lin to realize what had happened. Bai Lian thought lazily, proving that sometimes it's not good to be too polite. Lu Lingxi was so polite she couldn't even give things away. The training class for top students was held in the auditorium of the comprehensive building. With only about a dozen participants, there was less than one person per class. By the time Bai Lian arrived, most of the students were already there. To the front left, a circle of people sat around Chen Zhu as their center. On the right, there were a few scattered boys, with Ning Xiao, Zhang Shai's desk mate, also sitting there. Bai Lian walked to the right and found an empty spot to sit down. Although she had only transferred a few days ago, she was already quite famous at the school, and her presence was all over the forums. Someone noticed her as soon as she arrived. "It's Bai Lian." Ren Wangshuan, sitting to the left of Chen Zhu with a boy behind her, was surprised. "That transfer student, huh? Damn, is her academic performance actually that good?" The school was rife with rumors about Bai Lian being a top student because she was always seen reading books or solving problems. But no one had expected her to show up for this training class. As Ren Wangshuan was working through the test papers distributed in the training class, she caught Bai Lian's name from the surrounding discussion and momentarily wondered if she had heard wrong. "Who did you say?" she asked. "There." The girl in front of Ren Wangshuan, Shi Yudong, her chief lackey, gestured with her chin toward the right. "Her, Bai Lian, the pretty transfer student." Ren Wangshuan glanced over reflexively and saw Bai Lian settling into her seat not far away, her school jacket casually slung aside, with eyes as lazy as a beautiful cat's. Murmurs about Bai Lian buzzed around her. It seemed she was the center of attention. The discussions invariably revolved around Bai Lian. Daring to transfer in senior year like that, and joining our training class within a few days of arriving at school, she can't possibly be as freakish in her studies as Chen Zhu and Ning Xiao, can she? The people here had known each other since first year when they started taking competition classes together in Beicheng. They were all very familiar with each other. Hearing his name linked with Ning Xiao's, Chen Zhu looked up. Chen Zhu was the pride of the Chen family's generation. Unlike Chen Wei, he always kept away from trouble at school, focusing solely on his studies and regularly competing with Ning Xiao for the top spot in their grade. So, despite Ning Xiao's gloomy and reserved demeanor, avoiding interaction and rather reclusive, Chen Zhu recognized his name. There were whispers that someone had scores close to Ning Xiao in the combined sciences. For the first time, he spoke up. "What transfer student?" Seeing Chen Zhu asking, Shi Yudong hurriedly glanced his way, half in admiration as she began. "That's Bai Lian. To be in this program, her grades." Her grades! With people all around discussing Bai Lian and even Chen Zhu asking about her, Ren Wangshuan cut in. She scoffed, almost mockingly looking away. The others immediately sensed something unusual as the boy behind pressed. "Ren, do you know her?" Most people turned to look her way. On the first term exam, her combined sciences score was 85. Ren Wangshuan picked up her pen again, the tone almost scornful. As for why she's here, she almost didn't even have to think about why. The school must have learned Bai Lian was a relative of the Ren family. Ren Wangshuan kept a cold face, but she said nothing more. Inwardly, however, she was immensely irritable. Chen Zhu at her side had caught on, having not recognized Bai Lian earlier, But now, upon hearing Ren Wongshuan mention her, he recalled the person he had seen on the street that night. Some relative of the Ren family, though he didn't know exactly what their connection was. If Bai Lian had joined the training class because of the Ren family, it wouldn't be much of a surprise. He nodded and continued to focus on his practice questions. The others looked at each other in confusion. Every person in the training class knew what this class was for. An app reserve slot for Jiangjing University. Every person in this room was truly talented. The initial test for math was extremely difficult, yet the comprehensive science was just giveaway points, with several sitting here who had scored full marks in it. Putting aside 85 points here was almost unheard of in the whole school. 85! Shi Yudong raised her voice. Then how did she get in here? She had good grades, and because of her family situation, she had learned to network from a young age, grouping together with others in school and looking down on the ordinary students. With such a score, Bai Lian's presence here clearly highlighted her as a connection-based attendee. However, Shi Yudong wasn't overly concerned, for even if Bai Lian had pulled strings to get in, could she really be more influential than the Chen or Ren families? A few who had wanted to add Bai Lian on WeChat now forcefully restrained themselves from doing so. Why is it so quiet today? The substitute teacher was the homeroom teacher of Class 8, Grade 3, and also the head of the physical science department. Wearing glasses, he turned on the projector to start the lesson for the class, smiling warmly at these top students. As usual, everyone will watch a 1.5-hour lesson and do half an hour of practice questions. We'll finish at 8 o'clock. The lesson was a video recording from a famous teacher's competition class at a high school affiliated with Jiangjing. Math and physics were alternated. Today's lesson was on physics. After starting the video, the homeroom teacher also sat at the back with a pen and paper to watch along with the students. Today's physics lesson included electromagnetism and the theory of relativity. The video clearly explained everything from the special theory of relativity to electromagnetism. Bai Lian listened intently for the first time to the concept of time dilation. She found the concept frightening because it meant that the flow of time was different for everyone. The video ended promptly at 7:30 p.m., and the homeroom teacher distributed practice problems he had printed out. This is the question for today. You all can work on it. I'll collect it tomorrow evening, and it will be part of your regular evaluation. The auditorium quieted down to just the sound of pages being turned. After distributing the questions, the homeroom teacher, with his hands clasped behind his back, slowly walked over to Bai Lian and looked down at her. Like Lu Lingxi, he had received a call from the principal days before, but he knew more than Lu Lingxi did. The principal took special interest in this transfer student named Bai Lian and had instructed him and the math teacher to take good care of her. So, upon his arrival today, he couldn't resist shifting his attention to Bai Lian. The questions printed by the training class were synchronized with the video and were very difficult, all originating from Jiangjing. In the past, he had always focused on Chen Zhu and Ning Xiao, but today, he made an exception to watch Bai Lian. He was curious whether she could solve it. Bai Lian was unaware of the homeroom teacher's thoughts. She glanced at the question, then casually set the paper aside. She took out a book and slowly flipped through it. The homeroom teacher who was waiting to see her solve the question was puzzled. "I write, will you?" "Why aren't you writing?" "Student, do you have a problem with me?" He waited, undeterred, for 10 minutes. Realizing that the student had no intention of writing, he stood up, emotionless, ready to go home. It was clear that this student was quite rebellious. Normally, the last half hour was optional for students to stay, with substitute teachers typically leaving early. Suddenly, something occurred to him. Wait, the book Bai Lian had taken out was Physics at Jiangjing University. Physics at Jiangjing University wasn't for sale to the public. Only students from Jiangjing University's physics department had access to it. Getting into Jiangjing University was hard enough, let alone its top-ranked physics department. The homeroom teacher didn't even know anyone from the physics department at Jiangjing University. He walked out, contemplating in silence. He had to find a chance to deceive, no, to borrow the book from this student to take a look. Meanwhile, Bai Lian read her book while taking notes. She turned the pages gently. "So annoying." In front of Ren Wongshuan, Shi Yudong coldly glanced towards Bai Lian, and seeing that Bai Lian had put her assigned problems aside and was just flipping through a book, couldn't help snapping. If you're not interested in studying seriously, can you at least not disturb others? Your constant page flipping, don't you find it bothersome? Surnamed Bai, Shi Yudong had searched all over Beicheng and couldn't find a family with the surname Bai. Her father is in the Department of Education and knows the students' files. While others at school don't know, she is crystal clear about it. Chen Wei's family is the richest in Beicheng, and Ren Wongshuan's family is even more incredible. Bai Lian still kept her head down slightly. The lights in the lecture hall were quite bright. She leaned casually against the back of her chair, one hand flipping through a book and the other holding a pen, occasionally making notes on the page. She paid no attention to Shi Yudong. Although Shi Yudong couldn't compare with Chen Wei or Ren Wongshuan, she wasn't invisible at school either, with good grades and a respectable family background. She couldn't let go of her dignity being snubbed like this. Bai Lian, are you deaf? Ah! Bai Lian finally looked up, glancing at Shi Yudong as if she had just realized someone was calling her, a strand of black hair falling onto her cheek. Are you hollering at me? Her use of the word, hollering, made it seem like she was referring to the barking of a dog. Shi Yudong's face darkened. You better stop flipping. I'll insist on flipping. Bai Lian interrupted Shi Yudong, appearing like any other ordinary student, but her posture was upright, her arm casually resting on the table, yet when she turned to the side, her gaze was overwhelmingly haughty. She lazily flipped another page of her book and smiled at Shi Yudong. Why don't you call the police? Shi Yudong could swear she heard a few suppressed chuckles. Ren Wongshuan had experienced Bai Lian's sharp-wittedness before. She could not comprehend how someone who got into the tutoring class through the Ren family connections could be so confident. However, Ren Wongshuan didn't want more people at school to know about her relationship with Bai Lian, so she didn't clarify. She hoped that Bai Lian would have the self-awareness not to stick to her. Ren Wongshuan looked at Shi Yudong. Take a seat. Shi Yudong sat down. She glared at Bai Lian with a dark expression. She had never faced embarrassment in front of others, let alone by a transfer student whose background was a mystery. Half an hour quickly passed. One by one, those who couldn't solve the problem in the lecture hall stopped trying, packed up their things, and went home. Ren Wongshuan looked at Chen Zhu beside her. Did you figure it out? Chen Zhu shook his head and then glanced at Ning Zio's seat. Ning Zio was preparing to leave, but it was unclear if he had solved it. Shall we go back? Ren Wongshuan hadn't found the correct answer either. Do you have news about the invitation? Chen Zhu was also putting away his pen, and upon hearing this, turned his head. Where did you get the news from? My gra. As Ren Wongshuan started to speak, she noticed Bai Lian was still there and dropped the subject, giving Chen Zhu and the others a look. Let's talk outside. She didn't want to discuss her grandfather and her family history in front of Bai Lian. The group packed up and left together. As they left through the front door, Ren Wongshuan noticed that the exercise paper on Bai Lian's desk was still spotless. She hadn't even attempted the first question. A cold sneer curled the corners of Ren Wongshuan's mouth. Do you have news of the White Tiger auction house invitation from your grandfather? With hardly anyone in the stairwell, Chen Zhu took the initiative to ask. There's no news from my dad's side. That's quite normal. Ren Wongshuan was not surprised. Not just anyone can get into the White Tiger auction house. The White Tiger auction house catered to an international audience. Beicheng was insignificant to them, and if they wanted to get an invitation, they would have to resort to the black market. The two of them continued talking to themselves, while Shi Yudong and the rest were in the fog listening in. With only ordinary family backgrounds, they were somewhat informed about domestic affairs, but had never even heard of the White Tiger auction house. It wasn't until they parted ways at the door and watched the two drive off that they discussed quietly among themselves. Shi Yudong lowered her voice. "I'll think one heard my dad mention it once, somewhere near our border." She didn't even dare to utter Baxter Street. That place, where average people dare not casually enter. They say even passing dogs lose 3 layers of skin. It was after 8 in the evening. Jiang He was waiting for her at the school entrance. Ming Dingheng looked at Bai Lian apologetically, thinking she had a really good temper. Jiang Fulai was busy coming and going every day, with Jiang He mostly playing alone before waiting for Jiang Fulai to return. He was odd and had no other friends his age. Bai Lian was Jiang He's first friend, and she was even willing to take him out to play. Jiang He was very attached to Bai Lian. Bai Lian had already received Jiang He's message. She had told Beicheng she wouldn't be coming home for dinner and took Jiang He to a milk tea shop nearby. "What time is your brother coming back?" "The milk tea shop is closing at 9. Her desk mate had already left work and gone home. "No need to close," Jiang He drawled. "My brother bought the milk tea shop." As if he had just bought a big head of cabbage. The incorruptibly honest Bai family. Jiang Fulai came back early today. He also had dinner sent to the school. When he got out of the car, the milk tea shop was no longer open to the public, with only one incandescent light on by the window. Bai Lian was doing her homework with her head down. It was a bit cold that night, so she had put on her school uniform jacket without zipping it up, revealing the white embroidered collar inside. She rested her chin on one hand in a lazy manner while holding a pen in the other, her eyelashes half lowered. People passing by would frequently turn their heads for another look. Jiang He sat beside her, engrossed in twisting a Rubik's Cube. The wind chime at the door rang, and Bai Lian and Jiang He both lifted their heads simultaneously to see who was coming in. Jiang Fulai always had a cold and noble look in his eyes, restrained in his elegance. He was still holding his coat that bore the chill of the outside, his figure tall and straight, slightly bowing his head as he entered. Seeing the two of them look up at him, his steps halted curiously for a second. Why did he take in Jiang He? Perhaps because seeing 3-year-old Jiang He waiting alone at home for parents who would never return, he could relate. Jiang He was a loner, spoke little, but hardly ever caused trouble. These past few days had been the most spirited he had ever been. Jiang Fulai felt an illusion that it was as if Bai Lian and Jiang He were waiting for him. The assistant arranged the meals neatly, including Bai Lian's share. Without being polite, Bai Lian picked up her chopsticks, and while eating, she showed Jiang Fulai the problem distributed today. "The teacher had me attend a tutorial class. I can understand the lecture, but the problems are really..." She paused, "Makes me want to fight them." Jiang Fulai found it a bit funny. "Don't rush into a fight just yet," he said with his clear, light voice, reaching out to take it. The printout bore the Jiangjing University logo, and he skimmed it to understand the gist. "It's not your problem. This person's way of setting questions is just like this, simple. After we eat, I'll explain it to you." The problem that no one in Beicheng Middle School could solve, he casually passed off with 2 light simples. During the meal, Jiang Fulai earnestly sent a message to Maxwell, suggesting the PhDs you mentor can't set problems properly. "I could teach them." Bai Lian had attended many classes these last 2 days, including the recorded lessons from a famous teacher tonight. It's only after listening to others that one can make comparisons. Jiang Fulai was much clearer than they were, straightforward, easy to understand, and detailed, even softening his voice a bit. Bai Lian watched him intently, her pair of dark eyes filled with a strong desire for knowledge. "So, is the constancy of the speed of light derived or proven?" "Maxwell's equations." Jiang Fulai reached for a pen, his fingers elegant, clean, and long. He wrote a set of beautiful equations on the back. Jiang He was drinking milk nearby, looking at Jiang Fulai with an expressionless face. Last month, he had asked Jiang Fulai a similar question. The other man pointed at a folder and said indifferently, "There's a paper I published in Nature 2 years ago on the topic. Find it yourself." Are these words said by a human being? Jiang Fulai was very clear, and since Bai Lian's main focus of study recently was electromagnetism, she could almost understand the problem. The next day at school, she completed the problem based on her understanding. Tonight's tutorial class was on mathematics. The homeroom teacher of Class 8 collected yesterday's practice problems and distributed the newly printed solutions to everyone before starting today's video. The students watched the video. After returning to his desk, the homeroom teacher took out his usual grading book and 2 pens and started correcting the submitted practice problems. Most students hadn't completed them. After reviewing each student's work, he made a note in their regular grades. All of this would be part of the assessment in a month's time. The problem was excessively difficult. The Class 8 teacher had almost stayed up all night to fully understand the answer after receiving it. When he saw Ning Xiao's answer, he WFF0T a big 8 behind his name. The regular grade was out of 10 points. Most others scored between 4 and 5. Ren Wangshuan's answer was a bit higher, 6 points. Chen Zhu didn't cover as many aspects as Ning Xiao did, 7 points. A bunch of science students with wildly scribbled writing. He spent years searching for twisted answers in various cracks. Not until turning to the last page did the words arranged neatly, stroke by stroke, catch his eye, even neater and more beautiful than the printed problems. The homeroom teacher's eyes lit up. He focused on the content, becoming serious at the first question, but when he reached the second one, his pupils contracted. The head teacher of Class 8 hurriedly found his glasses and put them on. He then compared the answers given by Jiangjing with those of this student. The ones he held were loose and ordinary, in the most regular and unadorned method. Students from the training class all followed these steps. He himself was no exception. However, the answer sheet in his hand was different. He looked at it without blinking, not missing a single punctuation mark, and upon finishing, he even had an epiphany. So this is what the question meant. The head teacher's gaze moved to the name section. Unsurprisingly, 2 neatly written characters, Bai Lian. He gave a big wave of his hand and marked an unprecedented 10 on her usual score. 9 o'clock in the evening. The underground laboratory. The energy threshold is low. Jiang Fulai looked up, took off his glasses, one hand propped on the table, the other hand pointing to an energy diagram he had just drawn. But the kinetic energy before and after the quark collision does not match. WPMPS have taken some of the energy away. He stood upright, methodically analyzing the results he had just detected. The pencil lightly drew a graph that could be compared to computer-generated ones. The slightly dim lab lights shone upon his smooth profile. His careful strokes seemed deliberately sketched, long and dense lashes slightly lowered, casting a soft shadow. The team members beside him hurriedly took down notes with their pens and paper, capturing his words. "Let's stop here for today." Jiang Fulai put away his pen and casually clipped it to his collar, slender fingers pulling a black mask out of his pocket, concealing his tall nose bridge. He was tall, and the black jacket made him look somewhat thin. Everyone watched his retreating back. A male student calmly put away his recording pen, confidently opening his mouth. "Something's off." The others nodded in agreement. It was well known that Jiang Fulai's team was the most competitive in the country. It was common for Lord Jiang to stay in the lab until midnight every day, hardly ever returning home at night for months on end. Once a team member heard the Jiang family on the phone over a trivial matter, he was scolded in the office for 5 minutes. Latterly, the Jiang family dared not come to him casually. However, for the last 2 days, he had been returning home punctually at 9 o'clock every evening. "Ha!" The female student next to the male sneered as she fished his recording pen out of his pocket. "So you've been secretly recording us behind our backs, huh? No wonder you're always so quick to answer young Master Jiang's questions. When you're really asking for it." Male student, in the car. Jiang Fulai was sitting in the back seat. The laptop was put away on the table, and when his phone rang, he glanced at the screen and answered. On the other end came a male voice. "Why reject the Gao family? Just sneaking someone in, not making them join the Jiang family. I knew it. As soon as your mother died, you stopped considering me your uncle." But Jiang Fulai stopped listening to the rest. The car slowed to a stop, and the assistant got out to fetch Jiang He's dinner from the trunk. Jiang Fulai looked out the window, through the glass. He could see that Jiang He and Bai Lian were still sitting in the same spot at the milk tea shop, a small white lamp lighting up above their heads. Jiang Fulai detached himself from his emotions methodically and with cool detachment, because it's pointless. What I'm saying," Jiang Fulai said with a light gaze, calm as a deep pool, his voice holding back a chill as he took a black notebook and stepped out of the car, "is I don't accept trash." He hung up and walked closer. Bai Lian was tackling a physics paper, leaning over the table filling out the sheet just handed out by her physics teacher that day. Seeing Jiang Fulai, She lifted her eyes and continued resting her chin on her arm, greeting him languidly. "Teacher Jiang, haven't finished your homework yet?" Jiang Fulai pulled out the chair opposite her. "Do high school seniors nowadays have this much homework?" "Almost done," Bai Lian wrote down the last line, her gaze drifting towards the black notebook in his hand. "This," Jiang Fulai said nonchalantly as he pushed the notebook towards her, his delicate brows and eyes as cold and indifferent as ever, even his voice seemingly careless, "is my old physics notebook." Bai Lian perked up, her eyes on the notebook reflecting the light overhead, stunningly beautiful. "Thank you." Jiang He was just by the side, watching Jiang Fulai intently. Because she had to go to the training class in the evening, Bai Lian did not wait for Beicheng to have dinner together. She ate in the cafeteria in the evening, hung out with Jiang He at the milk tea shop for a while before going back. Beicheng would wait at the alley entrance for Bai Lian to return home every night, and tonight was no exception. It was nearly 10 o'clock. Bai Lian suddenly remembered about time dilation. "Grandfather, are you sleepy?" Beicheng, holding a flashlight, was about to say he wasn't sleepy, but recalling what Bai Lian had been doing the past few days, he cautiously said, "A little." "Ah," Bai Lian said with some regret, "then I'll call you again tomorrow morning to wake you up." "Beicheng, must you really call?" The next day, Thursday. As soon as Beicheng opened his eyes, he saw the person squatting by his bed. "Grandpa," Bai Lian had been listening to English vocabulary, but upon seeing him open his eyes, she turned off the sound. "Are you awake?" Beicheng. Afterward, wherever he went, Bai Lian followed. As soon as Jai Shaojun stepped into the courtyard, he heard Bai Lian's lazy voice. "So time will change according to everyone's pace. Grandpa, do you understand?" "Grandpa, why aren't you talking?" Bai Lian turned her head back. Beicheng silently spit out the mouthwash. "Maybe it's because your grandpa is brushing his teeth." "Why? Why do high school students have so much energy? Doesn't she need to sleep?" Beicheng's courtyard had never been so lively. Jai Shaojun smiled as he watched Bai Lian follow Beicheng from the kitchen to the courtyard, then to the storage room. Breakfast was something Bai Lian went to Purist Street to buy early in the morning. At 6:40, she got a precise answer from Beicheng's mouth and then left with her uniform. "Grandpa, uncle, I'm leaving first." Once she left, the whole courtyard became quiet. Jai Shaojun looked at Beicheng's serious face and complained in his heart. "Just keep pretending. The word grandpa must have made you feel like you're floating in the air." At Zhangcheng Middle School, the senior year has physical education classes. Class 15 has theirs last on Thursday mornings, together with Class 8. With only so many classes in a week and over 80 classes in the school, some classes have PE at the same time. It wasn't like this before, Pu Ziohen, who sat in front of Bai Lian and was also too lazy to move, informed her. Later, someone anonymously reported it, and the school had to schedule physical education classes. Bai Lian, holding a black notebook, sat under a tree as soon as the PE teacher announced free activity time, slowly flipping through it. Even without doing anything, there were plenty of people who pretended to glance her way casually. Another basketball came flying in her direction. Only this time it was a bit off, spinning towards Bai Lian's forehead, heading straight for her. A boy anxiously shouted. Hey, Bai Lian lazily turned a page without lifting her head, and only when the ball was about to hit her face did she raise her other hand, catching the fast-flying ball cleanly in her palm. The breeze brought by the ball lightly lifted the loose hair on her forehead. At noon, the sunlight was just right. She weighed the ball in her hand, then lazily looked up at the boy with a languid gaze. Sunlight filtered through the tree branches, sprinkling bits of light over her head as she tossed the ball back to him carelessly. She smiled at him with eyes as charming as jade. Be careful! The boy caught the ball. His face flushed red, and it took him a while to recover and return to his team, while his teammates whispered excitedly, Damn, that was cool. 10 minutes. Pu Ziohen came back to reality, closed her mouth, and began to count for Bai Lian. Only 10 minutes and already 2 shuttlecocks and 3 basketballs have accidentally landed near you. Bai Lian is so extreme. Bai Lian smiled lazily. She looked down, took out her phone to snap a photo of a black cat on the notebook, and sent it to Jiang Fulai. Your drawing isn't as good as my grandpa's, Jiang teacher. Not far away. She's actually reading a book. Shi Yudong stared intently in Bai Lian's direction, her expression heavily sullen, scoring 85 in comprehensive science and still pretending. Ren Wangshuan leaned against the horizontal bar with a bag in her hand. Wangshuan, Brother Chen said you have an invitation to the International White Tiger Auction House. A few students from Class 8 came over with a basketball, whispering mysteriously, "We've never seen one before." Ren Wangshuan looked towards Chen Zhu. Chen Zhu nodded at her. Ren Wangshuan laughed and weighed her bag in her hand. She originally intended to open it right then and there, but seeing Bai Lian not far away, paused. "Let's find another spot to show you guys." Pu Ziohen did not dare offend Class 8's people and could only resentfully mutter to herself about Bai Lian. "Elle wouldn't fancy it even if you showed me." But she also knew that something treasured by the people from the crown class had to be extraordinary. After gym class, Bai Lian went with Pu Ziohen and Yang Lin to the cafeteria for lunch. All the way there, Pu Ziohen tried hard not to stare at Yang Lin. Zhang Shais and others, after getting their food, gathered around Bai Lian's table. Yang Lin sat next to Bai Lian with just a green vegetable in her bowl. Without much thought, Bai Lian put a chicken leg in her bowl, and with an indifferent air she received from her $1,000,000 child support said, "This is the child support that my mom and my crappy dad each gave me after their divorce. It's not much, but remember to pay it back later." Yang Lin's chopsticks halted. Pu Ziohen's mind was racing with Bai Lian's loaded words. She opened her mouth, about to tell Bai Lian, "Yang Lin won't take it." But then she saw Yang Lin gently make an sound. Yang Lin ate quickly, finishing in a few bites before heading back. Pu Ziohen and Zhang Shai's group were still seated, completely astounded. So the reason they couldn't give their things away was that their parents hadn't divorced. Bai Lian, after finishing lunch, as Bai Lian and company had just reached the second floor, they saw the Class 8 homeroom teacher coming out of the second floor office, wearing glasses. As the homeroom teacher of the crown class, Zhang Shais and others naturally recognized him. Several students, scared at the sight of a teacher, went clamoring up to the third floor, leaving Bai Lian by herself. "Your work on last time's questions was very good." The Class 8 homeroom teacher stood in the hallway, expressing his admiration before his tone turned discontent. "Why did you go off to study literature before? That's just nonsense." Bai Lian hid her feelings behind her eyes, quite honestly admitting, "Teacher, yesterday's questions were taught to me by someone else." "That has nothing to do with teaching," he laughed. "From your steps, I can understand your whole problem-solving thought process. If you can understand that question, the answer, even if I were to use it in a tutoring class, only a few people would comprehend it." Bai Lian really wanted to explain to the teacher. If Jiang Fulai explained it to them once, they could write it out too. It's just a matter of whether the teacher would believe it or not. She touched her nose and collected the compliment before heading back to the third floor. Of course, she didn't know Jiang Fulai would find it decent enough if he didn't curse them out, explain a question. Class 8. Chen Zhu and company never ate at the school cafeteria, preferring to eat at a small private restaurant outside before returning. Ren Wangshuan returned to her seat. Because she was going out for lunch and others still wanted to look at the invitation, she asked Shi Yudong to take her bag back to class after they were done. As soon as she came back, she opened her bag. "What's wrong?" Noticing Ren Wangshuan's expression change, Chen Zhu stood up. Ren Wangshuan's face chilled over, scanning around the class. "Who came to our class at lunchtime?" That expression made it clear something was missing. The people of Class 8 were all prominent figures of Xiangcheng and internally aware of Ren Wangshuan's identity. They would not commit such an act. That left only one possibility, someone from another class. "Couldn't be. That right?" The worried class president quickly stood, referring to the invitation. Today, the whole class had been queuing up to view her invitation. Seeing Ren Wangshuan's dark expression, the class president knew he had guessed correctly. "Damn it!" He smacked the table hard, scanning the room. "Who came to our class at noon?" No one dared to speak out in the dead, silent room. After a long silence, a girl in the corner hesitantly raised her hand and spoke. "At noon, I think I saw that transfer student from class 15 on the second floor." Ren Wangshuan had never been this angry before. She had lived a life of privilege since childhood. In school, others only looked up to her. No one would dare touch not just what she kept in her bag, even her discarded items. Hearing the girl's words, Ren Wongshuan grit her teeth. Bai Lian, isn't it? She threw her bag onto the floor and headed directly towards Class 15. As she walked, she took out her phone and sent a message to her dad. Do you have to bring your relative to our school to disgust me? Bai Lian, the new transfer student, has become the most talked-about student at Beicheng Middle School due to her excessively flamboyant appearance. Those who have seen her will never forget. The girl who just spoke had seen Bai Lian on the second floor at noon and remembered vividly. Now, seeing Ren Wongshuan looking so angry, she was somewhat afraid. Class president, it won't cause any trouble, right? The girl looked toward the class president of Class 8. The class president seemed to be aware of the transfer student Bai Lian as well. He shook his head, indicating he didn't know. I'll go take a look. I don't know if it has anything to do with that new student. If it's really unclear what was lost, our whole class could be in for bad luck. He kicked the chair away and left. Behind him, Shi Yudong's eyes glittered. She followed and revealed a smile that took pleasure in others' misfortunes. It must be that transfer student. Class 15. At noon, most people were resting their heads on their desks, while some were writing furiously. Bang! The door was flung open, jolting many who were asleep on their desks awake. Ren Wongshuan, Shi Yudong, the class president of Class 8, and several other people from Class 8. There wasn't anyone in the school who didn't recognize them. Class 15 became utterly quiet. Even those who were whispering stopped and just watched them silently. A hush fell over the room. The people from Class 8 were known as the Crown Prince class because they acted wildly, and other classes had grown accustomed to their attitude. Ren Wongshuan did not look at anyone. She only swept her gaze across the classroom. Not seeing Bai Lian, she asked coldly, "Where's Bai Lian?" No one dared to speak. Zhang Shies, who had been startled awake by the loud slamming of the door, glanced at Ren Wongshuan and the class president of Class 8, sat up straight, leaned back and said, "She went to the restroom. What do you want with the people of Class 8 often played basketball with Zhang Shies?" The class president of Class 8, afraid that Zhang Shies would offend Ren Wongshuan, immediately intervened, holding him down and explaining the situation to him in a low voice. Ren Wongshuan simply ignored Zhang Shies. "Where's her seat?" No one answered, but some couldn't help but glance towards Bai Lian's desk. Zhang Shies had some connections with Class 8, and moreover, since Chen Zhu's younger sister Chen Wei liked him, the people of Class 8 usually showed him respect. He frowned, not believing at all that Bai Lian was that type of person. "You must be mistaken. My desk mate went to the second floor because your class teacher was looking for her." Zhang Shies continued to speak. Shi Yudong did not need to think at all. She went straight to Bai Lian's seat, pulled out the black backpack from Bai Lian's desk, and dumped its contents downward, clatter. A pile of books and notebooks fell to the floor. Ren Wongshuan didn't look at the books. Her eyes were only fixed on the unusually conspicuous red cover among the pile of books. She bent down, picked up the red invitation with a sneer from among the pile of books, then took out a tissue from her pocket, carefully wiped it, and held it in her hand, looking at Zhang Shies with a mocking smile. "Mistaken, huh?" Zhang Shies and the people around him also paused when they saw the red invitation in Ren Wongshuan's hand. Yang Lin had been sitting in her seat from the beginning. She had watched with an expressionless face as Shi Yudong rummaged through Bai Lian's backpack, waiting until Ren Wongshuan picked out the red invitation from among the pile of books. A questioning expression slowly appeared on her face. Bai Lian had just returned from the restroom. Don't want to say," Ren Wongshuan said coldly as she saw Bai Lian coming back. "Go explain it to the teacher." However, Bai Lian did not look at her. She stood at the door and looked at her seat, where her black backpack was carelessly thrown on the floor, with a bunch of books scattered on the chair and under the desk, as well as a bottle of milk that Jai Sheijun had put in her bag before she left in the morning. The classroom was as quiet as ever. Bai Lian slowly walked to her seat, kicked the chair away, and looked down at the scattered books for a few seconds. She raised her head, her face devoid of any smile, containing only 3 words. "Who did this?" She always seemed laid back, showing little interest in anything other than her studies. But now her eyes were deep and cold, her dark eyes like a shrouded mist at dawn. Her originally delicate features were tight with a look that warned strangers to keep away. Zhang Shai's involuntarily stepped back half a step after being swept by her gaze. His eyes turned towards Shi Yudong. "Was it you?" Bai Lian reached out, her slender fingers directly grabbing Shi Yudong's neck and pulling her over. Bang! Shi Yudong was flung onto a bench by Bai Lian, who held her by the neck. The loud noise made everyone else take another step back. Bai Lian pulled the hairpin from behind her head, the sharp end of the pin aiming at Shi Yudong's carotid artery. Bai Lian's hand slowly pressed down, almost cruelly smiling at her. "Who let you touch my things?" Shi Yudong's neck was so red it was almost bleeding. "What happened?" At the classroom doorway, Lu Lingxi hurried over. Lu Lingxi's voice was gentle yet powerful. People from Class 15 had gone to find Lu Lingxi as soon as the students from Class 8 arrived. "Bai Lian," Zhang Shai's also reacted, grabbing the hairpin in Bai Lian's hand. Bai Lian calmly stared at Shi Yudong for a few seconds. "You can't be serious." Lu Lingxi said these are all flowers of our country's future. But this person was like magnetic flux. Since she was like magnetic flux, she decided to let it go. Bai Lian thought for a few seconds before deliberately withdrawing her hairpin. Cough, cough, Shi Yudong quickly scrambled up, her eyes filled with terror as she looked at Bai Lian. Before moving Bai Lian's desk, she never expected the person in front of her to be insane. Ren Wangshuan's belongings were stolen and eventually found in Class 15. This was no trivial matter. As soon as the vice principal heard it was Ren Wangshuan's issue, he put aside his work and came to the senior high building. "There's no need to call the parents." Holding the invitation, Ren Wangshuan cut off Jai Sheorong's call and addressed Lu Lingxi and the school leaders. "Just call the police directly." Calling the parents would be exactly what Bai Lian wanted, wouldn't it? In the end, not only would it become an internal matter for the Ren family, but the whole school would also learn that this freshman was from the Ren family. Ren Wangshuan had no doubt that this was done by Bai Lian. Apart from her, Ren Wangshuan couldn't imagine who else would be so foolish as to commit such an act that harmed the enemy 1,000 and themselves 800. Considering calling the parents and blowing things up, only to be forced by public opinion in the end for the Ren family to drop the matter. But Ren Wangshuan refused to comply with her wishes. "Ren student," Lu Lingxi didn't think the matter was done by Bai Lian, but no matter who did it, she didn't agree with calling the police. This is an internal school matter. Calling the police would have too great an impact on a student's life. Beside her, the vice principal nodded frequently. "Not calling the police, handling it lightly." Ren Wangshuan looked at the people in the office. "If you don't realize this invitation has no market value, you can ask Chen Zhu." Next to her, Chen Zhu pondered for a moment. "Teacher, this is an invitation from White Tiger Auction House. Except for special channels, it truly is unavailable for purchase." The teachers had no idea what the White Tiger Auction House was. But hearing Chen Zhu and Ren Wangshuan's words, they knew the situation was serious. Lu Lingxi and the vice principal exchanged glances. "Cough, cough," Shi Yudong, who didn't dare to look at Bai Lian, said hoarsely. "If you don't call the police, I'll help you." Lu Lingxi frowned, but, "It's okay." Bai Lian was taller than Lu Lingxi and comforted her with an indifferent look. "Let them call the police. I'll be fine." "But they're family." Lu Lingxi knew these powerful families were not to be trifled with. She turned to Chen Zhu, who was from the people of Class 8. Unlike others, Chen Zhu wouldn't cause trouble due to his family background. If there was anyone in the school who could stop Ren Wangshuan, it might only be Chen Zhu. Chen Zhu averted his gaze, his refusal clear. This was a matter of principle, and he couldn't help Lu Lingxi. Moreover, the White Tiger Auction House invitation was also very important to the Chen family. Lu Lingxi felt a bit deflated. Shi Yudong had already called the police, watching Bai Lian's direction with malicious eyes. Bai Lian didn't care about the invitation. Just taking out her phone and looking up someone's profile picture, she inquired leisurely, "White tank top. Sister, I was just about to tell you, someone's made an offer for your invitation." Bai Lian. "Xiaomo, is there any purchase record for that thing, white tank top?" "There's no record, but each one is unique." Godfather had the auction house make a new one for you, so you have VIP status, and behind is a gold white character. Bai Lian understood, typing a single character. White tank top. Sister, then I'll wait for you at the usual spot tonight to give you the buyer's money. Bai Lian. One white tank top. All right, sister. Considering the Wren family was involved, the police station didn't dare to be careless, and they responded quickly. Since it was at a school, they were careful not to disturb the students, coming in plain clothes without using a siren. Leading the detectives was an officer who took Bai Lian aside for questioning, and then reviewed the surveillance footage in the hallway. Lu Lingxi felt uneasy, looking at the vice principal, wanting to say something. The vice principal sighed, lowering his voice, troubled by these special students from Class 8. Teacher Lu, is anyone from Class 8 easy to deal with? If your student doesn't want to leave a record, just let her transfer to another school. Although he was the vice principal, he could only tremble in fear in front of the Wren family and the Chen family. The entire interrogation appeared very simple. It took less than 3 minutes before the officer next door came out with Bai Lian. As soon as the two emerged, all eyes turned towards them. Lu Lingxi even stood up directly. Her eyes were full of inquiry. Miss Wren, the policeman, who had already been briefed on Ren Wangshuan's identity, began politely. May I see the invitation card in your hand, please? Ren Wangshuan frowned slightly. Unlike the general public, the police, who maintain law and order in Beicheng all year round, are naturally aware of Baxter Street and White Tiger Auction House. When he saw the lifelike white tiger on the red invitation card, he was very cautious. He flipped through it. Bai Lian had not examined the invitation closely. Only then did she notice the small Bai character on the back. She collected her thoughts and unhurriedly took out the original wood-colored hairpin from her pocket and restyled her hair. Her fingers were slender, clean, and so flawless they contained not a single impurity. It was hard to imagine how such hands, akin to a work of art, had previously been wrapped around Shi Yudong's neck. She looked towards the police officer, her eyes clear and unequivocal, her demeanor graceful and obedient. Can I leave now? I haven't finished my homework yet. The two policemen, who had never seen such a beautiful, well-behaved student who also loved to study, felt paternal affection and hurriedly said, You may go and do your homework. Bai Lian nodded and began to unzip her school uniform as she walked towards the exit. Remembering something, she turned back with a look of grievance. Teacher, she just pushed my desk. She complained to Lu Lingxi. The police immediately turned their gaze towards Shi Yudong, their attitude vigilant and stern. Classmate, please be mindful of your behavior. Lu Lingxi quickly blocked Shi Yudong's view of Bai Lian and turned back warmly. Bai Lian, don't be afraid. Go back to your study, the teacher is here. Shi Yudong looked incredulously at Bai Lian. What pushing the desk, damn it. She only flipped through a backpack, and Bai Lian nearly pierced her neck. Are you all blind? Shi Yudong actually wanted to call the police now. Bai Lian had already left, and it was only then that the others in the office came back to their senses. Chen Zhu stared blankly at the invitation card in the policeman's hand, and then towards the door. Not knowing what to think, Shi Yudong, with a hoarse voice, called out, Uncle Policeman, she is a thief. How could you just let her go? Did someone notify you? Do you know whose things she stole? Ren Wangshuan also stood up abruptly, her eyebrows twisted as she stared at the police officers, pursing her lips. Did the Ren family call you? Who was it? My dad. The two policemen were startled. What call? Ren Wangshuan sneered, not wishing to argue further. What are you two pretending for? You dare to let her go without receiving a call. Forget it, just give me my stuff. She extended her hand. Miss Wren, when did you buy your invitation card? One policeman couldn't help but ask. Ren Wangshuan replied, Yesterday for 500,000. 500,000 was a huge amount for the average person, but it was nothing for them. What mattered was the channel. 500,000, based on what we know about White Tiger Auction House's market value, is the price for regular customers. Miss Wren, you might not be aware that White Tiger Auction House has a kind of invitation card that is unique. What? Ren Wangshuan was taken aback. Indeed, she hadn't heard of it. The police officer turned over the invitation card, pointing at the small Bai T character for her to see. See this. In the bottom right corner, There's a Bai T character, indicating that this card is the personal property of Miss Bai, who was here just now, an invitation for VIPs from White Tiger Auction House. You're holding someone else's property while calling the police, and yet you still insist it is yours. The Ren family in Beicheng was akin to a colossal hand that could almost cover the sky, yet the young police officer didn't flinch. Seeing the condescending attitude of Ren Wongshuan and her group, compared to Bai Lian, who, despite being bullied, did not forget to study and remained obedient, it took them merely a second to side with the weaker party. However, these few words struck Ren Wongshuan like a heavy blow to the head. First it was 500,000, followed by VIP invitation. These words stunned everyone in the office, rendering them speechless. Lu Lingxi, as if a great burden had been lifted, slowly sat down. "So, officer, my student isn't involved, right?" "Of course. How could that be?" Ren Wongshuan simply couldn't believe it. In her eyes, Bai Lian was an opportunist relative from the Jai family that came out of nowhere, who transferred to a high school in Beicheng with a clear purpose, living with Jai Heng in an alley that hadn't been developed for decades. Not to mention the invitation, she probably didn't even know which way Backter Street opened. Chen Zhu reached out to take the invitation from the police officer's hand, scrutinizing it carefully. In fact, there was a significant difference between an ordinary invitation and a VIP invitation, and the invitations purchased by the Ren family had already been inspected numerous times by Ren Wongshuan and Chen Zhu. He could quickly discern the differences. Chen Zhu looked at Ren Wongshuan. "This should be hers. It's different from yours." "Are you done looking?" The police officer extended his hand to retrieve the invitation from Chen Zhu's hand. "This belongs to someone else." He then handed the invitation back to Lu Lingxi, remembering that she was the homeroom teacher of the girl in question. Ren Wongshuan pursed her lips, her mind a whirlwind. She wasn't sure where to start. "Then, where is my invitation?" The police officer remained silent, his gaze turning towards Shi Yudong by her side. Shi Yudong had started acting strangely the moment the police officer brought out Bai Lian's invitation. That invitation was clearly the one she had stuffed into Bai Lian's backpack. How did it end up belonging to Bai Lian? And what about the invitation that she had put inside? "Miss Ren," with keen insight, these officers were capable of using the big memory recovery technique even with serial killers, so they could easily see through psychologically immature students like Shi Yudong with just one glance. "I'll think it's best if we do not concern ourselves with students from other classes. Is this classmate a friend of yours?" When she caught the officer's gaze, Shi Yudong turned pale and slumped to the floor. Ren Wongshuan lowered her head, staring intently at Shi Yudong. The class leader of Class 8, who was at the door, only realized what had happened after hearing this and hurriedly went back to search Shi Yudong's desk in Class 8. The others looked at each other in confusion and followed suit. In actuality, the class leader of Class 8 didn't search much. As soon as he took out the backpack, a red invitation fell to the floor. A silent scene ensued. Lu Lingxi looked impassively at everyone from Class 8, then turned to the vice principal. "The police are here as well, let them handle it." "Of course," the police officer said. "An item worth 500,000 is not just a simple theft." In the end, the class leader of Class 8 could only lower his voice, his bafflement evident, as he spoke to Chen Zhu. "Zhu, isn't it said that these invitations are hard to come by? How come Bai Lian has one? And it seemed, even a higher grade one at that." Chen Zhu, who was always the leader in Class 8, was naturally approached by this group of privileged students whenever there was an issue. Now, however, Chen Zhu simply narrowed his eyes slightly and shook his head. Ren Wongshuan lowered her gaze, remaining silent. Class 15. When Bai Lian returned, her desk and chair had already been righted, her backpack and books tidied up. Everything was as it should be. Her usually languid and carefree face now carried a rare trace of melancholy. Her beautiful eyes held a "L must take someone down today" vibe. Upon her return, even though people were already distracted, they couldn't help but steal glances at her. But no one dared to speak. Bai Lian wore a blue and white school jacket with a white t-shirt underneath, embroidered with a green bamboo stalk. She pulled out her chair, her right elbow casually propped on the table as she sat. her hair tied up behind her head, looking through her notebook with lowered, graceful eyes. The midday sunlight streamed through the window, casting her half-lowered eyes into the shadow of her lashes, resembling an affronted white tiger, calm yet dangerous. Only after Bai Lian turned another page did the room breathe quietly. The notebook of Mr. Jiang mostly had clearly written formulas and problems, easy to understand, but some were more haphazard. For example, Maxwell's electromagnetic field theory, Mr. Jiang, omitted an iconic problem regarding the motion of charged particles, Nr. Jiang, obviously he drew an earth and added a remark, did the teacher not wake up? There's no gravitational force, this is space-time distortion. A full page of complete and clear notes plus theorems, with the last line, Master Jiang, what exactly is this nonsense the teachers are spouting? Chill out with an INIO paper. Master Jiang endured several days of taking thorough notes before voicing his doubt. Why am I even sitting here listening to the lecture? Following that, there were several pages on analyzing planetary density based on celestial movement, likely intended for others to read. Master Jiang, why do I need to explain such an easy question? After seriously analyzing celestial movement for a few more days, he finally burst out. Has Jiang Ziju's brain been eaten by a zombie? Ming Dingheng seems like a paramecium. I want to blow Su Nanjing up. What on earth are these three? It's hard to imagine any university admitting them. It was evident that he wasn't paying much attention in class, frequently daydreaming and coldly snarking with an indifferent face. Bai Lian was almost dying of laughter from these words. She took out her phone. Someone seemed to have recalled something about what was written in his notebook, noticing an unread message from an hour ago. Teacher Jiang, look at something useful. Lazily tapping on her phone, Bai Lian replied, like a paramecium. Teacher Jiang, Bai Lian. Jiang Fulai on the other side stared at the comma for a while before finding a video in his album and sending it over. Bai Lian clicked on it to take a look. It was a very magnificent blue fire ring, surrounded by transparent blue flames. Her eyes lit up. What's this? Teacher Jiang, shockwave mock ring. Bai Lian saved the video. It's beautiful, Teacher Jiang. Happy now? Bai Lian. She leaned on the desk, repeatedly watching the mock ring and casting Shi Yudong and Ren Wongshuan to the back of her mind, before lazily propping up her chin and nonchalantly beginning to jot down the other serious analyses he had written. Behind her, a bunch of people were gesturing at Zhang Shai's to ask around. As people of the same class, they were united, and the new student didn't look like someone who would steal from others. Don't ask why, it's just the beautifying filter they have for the attractive ones. Zhang Shai's replied with a look. Why don't you ask? It was a joke. Having already been up close to Bai Lian transforming and going on a rampage, he wasn't keen on getting himself killed, at least not right now. Everyone looked as if it was obvious. Of course, because you're handsome. Zhang Shai's, seems like dying once isn't such a bad idea. Zhang Shai's struggled internally for a long time. He saw that the desk in front of him didn't seem so dangerous, even starting to leisurely play with the milk that had just fallen on the floor. Only then did he reach out, gently tapping on the shoulder of the person in front of him. Bai Lian rested one hand on the desk, slightly turning her body with a lazy look in her eyes. Speak. Oh, Zhang Shai's touched his nose. About that issue with Class 8, can it be resolved? What's the situation now? He had been helping his mother with housework for the past 2 days, completely worn out, having to wake her up every morning for breakfast, and was planning to catch up on sleep at noon. But that plan had been disrupted by the people from Class 8. The rest of the students in Class 15 seemed to be hunched over their work, but each of them was all ears. Even Ning Xiao, Zhang Shai's brooding deskmate, lifted his head. It's resolved. Bai Lian turned back leisurely to take a sip of her milk and wrote down a character. Zhang Shai's was taken aback. Just as he was about to ask how it was resolved, Lu Lingxi walked in through the classroom door, gently placing an invitation on the desk. Don't keep such valuable things in your backpack next time. If it gets stolen, you might even be falsely accused. Oh, Bai Lian nodded. Her deskmate, Yang Lin, saw the invitation Lu Lingxi had brought back. It was indeed Bai Lian's. She remained silent as if she wanted to curse about something, but in the end, said nothing, silently taking out a book to work on problems. As soon as Lu Lingxi left the room, the students of Class 15 couldn't hold back any longer and all crowded around. Bai Lian, is this really yours? What in the world is going on? Damn, I saw Class 8 acting all secretive this morning, and you have won Bai Lian. She casually stuffed the invitation into Zhang Shai's hands, calmly saying, "Take a look, don't disturb my studying." Who would have thought that the item Ren Wangshuan from Class 8 had been secretively covering up? Bai Lian had just casually thrown their way, causing a bunch of them to surround Zhang Shai's. Swoosh, a group of boys shifted their battleground. Zhang Shai's group took the so-called White Tiger Auction House invitation and went out to play basketball during the break. Some guys from Class 8 couldn't stand the atmosphere in their class, so they went to the playground to play basketball. Heading to the playground, they saw Zhang Shai's group from Class 15 showing off their red invitation envelopes, asking anyone they met, "Have you seen the White Tiger Auction House's invitation? It's the VIP edition, you know. Come on, today we're using the White Tiger Auction House invitation to play ping pong." The elite Class 8, who had been so secretive and afraid to show their invitations that morning, their faces stiffened. "Class rep, let's just go back." At night, the 6 o'clock training class proceeded as usual. Today, neither Ren Wangshuan nor Shi Yudong came. The atmosphere in the training class was unusually quiet and eerie. The Class 8 homeroom teacher arrived a bit late today. He stood behind Bai Lian for a long time, hesitating every time he seemed to want to say something. Bai Lian turned her head back and looked at the Class 8 homeroom teacher, blinking as if she were asking, "What's up?" Her almond eyes were as ever, pure with clear black and white contrast, her expression usual. Because of the incident at noon, the Class 8 homeroom teacher was silent for a moment, not knowing how to apologize to Bai Lian. He patted Bai Lian on the shoulder. As clever as they come, he knew what Bai Lian meant. She hadn't taken out the annoyance caused by the people of Class 8 on others. The Class 8 homeroom teacher then lowered his voice. "I was thinking of showing your answers from yesterday to a few students. Would that be okay?" Some content in the answers was beyond the syllabus, and he suspected that some students might not understand it, so he only planned to show it to 2 who would. Bai Lian nodded, her cold white fingers twirling a black pen at her fingertips casually. "Sure." Only then did the Class 8 homeroom teacher straighten up, the screen still playing today's tutorial. He quietly closed the door and went out to print 2 copies of the rearranged answers from last night, intending to give them to Ning Xiao and Chen Zhu. As the answers were Bai Lian's, he had asked for her opinion. At 7:30, the Class 8 homeroom teacher handed out the exercises for the day, and standing next to Bai Lian, he lowered his voice. "Bai Lian, someone is looking for you. Pack up and leave first." Bai Lian gripped the pen she was twirling and lazily replied with one word. "Okay." She put her things into her backpack and left through the back door. The tutoring venue was located in the comprehensive building, and at the time Bai Lian came out, the boarding students were also in their evening self-study, making the entire campus dim and quiet. At the steps outside the comprehensive building, a black Audi was parked quietly there. Bai Lian, wearing a simple school uniform, walked leisurely down the steps under the dim lighting, her overly bright face softened by the shadows, her back straight and her bearing relaxed yet reserved. By the car, the waiting secretary spotted a slim figure approaching in the distance. It must be someone from the Jai family, and he instinctively adjusted his glasses. He gently tapped the rear car door and reported to Ren Kaiyan. "Sir, she's coming out." Ren Ilan responded softly. He had carefully reviewed the Jai families and Bai Lian's information after hearing about the school incident that afternoon. The information was quite ordinary. Bai Lian had just moved her registration to Beicheng, with no detailed information about her parents. Beicheng Middle School only had her science comprehensive scores of 85, and currently she was living with Jai Heng in the slums. That was all. Very clean. At least the documents didn't indicate anything special, just a very ordinary high school senior, so ordinary that she could be lost in a crowd with hardly a ripple stirred. Where in the world did that special invitation from the White Tiger Auction House come from? Ren Kaiyan got out of the back seat and looked up at the girl who had just descended the last step of the staircase. "Hello, I'm Ren Wongshuan's grandfather." Ren Kaiyan was the first to speak, standing not far away, squinting slightly as he sized up Bai Lian, his aura as a person in a position of power feeling quite oppressive. "Bai Lian." Bai Lian nodded at him, her tone lacking any discernible emotion. Ren Kaiyan watched her quietly, noting her school uniform was just like the other students, and even the hairpin on her head was handmade, from head to toe. Even her shoes were nothing out of the ordinary. Everything about her resonated with the run-down, impoverished purist street. Yet standing in the night, backed by a long staircase and a street lamp that wasn't even very bright, the quiet look she returned was like a mandrake growing on the cliffs of the night. "Wongshuan has been spoiled by us. I apologize for what happened today." Ren Kaiyan regained his composure, full of regret. "She hadn't anticipated that you would also have an invitation to the White Tiger auction house. I've arranged a banquet tonight and hope you can forgive my granddaughter." "There's no need," Bai Lian smiled, a hint of indifference in her lazy demeanor under the light. "Elle got the invitation by helping someone by accident, and I've already sold it this afternoon." That made sense, since Purist Street was close to two boundaries. It wasn't strange to run into some people there. The Secretary General pondered internally and then deliberately mentioned the Wand Building. "Miss Bai, our gentleman has made a reservation for a meal at the Wand Building." Wand Building, the most famous members-only restaurant in Beicheng. A random dish there would start at 4 digits and required a reservation. An ordinary person couldn't even get through the door. "I'll have other plans," Bai Lian interrupted. "I'll take my leave first." The Secretary General stood dumbfounded, watching Bai Lian walk away. "Sir, does she not watch the news?" The Secretary General turned to ask Ren Kaiyan, unable to hide his confusion. Just a glance more at the news and she would know who Ren Kaiyan was, wouldn't she? "This girl has an unusual air about her," Ren Kaiyan mused, then instructed. "Send a gift to the Jai family tomorrow." Was this an indication of seeking good relations? The Secretary General was surprised, but gained a measure of respect for the Jai family. Although Bai Lian's invitation had been acquired unintentionally, what if she formed a relationship with that person in the future? Ren Kaiyan returned to his car. The girl seated in the back was still looking down at her phone, not bothering to look up. He spoke helplessly. "Xuangshuan, this student Bai Lian is different from what one imagined. She has a sense of integrity. You should have gone down to apologize to her." "I didn't know she had one too. Are you taking her side?" Ren Wongshuan finally looked up. She pursed her lips, glanced at Ren Kaiyan, and then abruptly pulled open the car door to leave. Bang! The car door slammed shut forcefully. "Sir!" From the driver's seat, the Secretary General looked back with an inquiring expression. Ren Kaiyan fell silent for a long while. "Have someone follow her." Ren Wongshuan had always been bright, skipping grades in school, and she was the youngest and most beloved both in class and in the Ren family, never having suffered any indignity. Today was the first time Ren Kaiyan had reprimanded her. Tutorial class. The class teacher, after seeing Bai Lian leave, remembered those 2 solution papers and handed them to Chen Zhu. Chen Zhu was immersed in studying today's problems, and when the class teacher placed the papers down, he glanced at them casually, mistaking them for another set of problems, but he saw the printed answers. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Today's problems didn't involve magnetism. He took the paper and examined it for a while, then, somewhat stunned, he took out his workbook from his bag. He had already transcribed the answers to the previous physics problem into his challenging physics problem compilation. Indeed, it was another solution to last time's problem. The rest of the tutorial class had already left. Only Ning Xiao and Chen Zhu were still seated in their original spots. Chen Zhu reluctantly put away the alternate solution and then got up to find the teacher for the 8th class. The 8th class teacher put down his thermos, surprised by Chen Zhu's approach. "What's up?" "This solution." Chen Zhu spread out the paper he was holding for the 8th class teacher to see. "Where did you get it from?" The 8th class teacher looked at Chen Zhu without answering immediately. Instead, he asked, "What do you think of the new student?" If Chen Zhu had spoken up timely today about the incident involving Ren Wongshuan, perhaps the dispute wouldn't have escalated as it did. Chen Zhu was the only one in the school who could stand up to Ren Wongshuan. When Bai Lian was mentioned, Chen Zhu paused. He recalled the reason she came to the tutorial class and that 85 score. It was precisely because of this understanding that he had kept quiet at noon today. Clearly, his understanding was still limited. "I don't know her well enough to comment," he said. "I'm planning to establish a study group tomorrow. Will you lead the new student?" the 8th class teacher asked. He had known Ren Wongshuan since they were young, and they had been paired together in a group since childhood. Plus, Ren Wongshuan was indeed very smart. Being in her group meant he wouldn't have to worry much. Now she had a conflict with Bai Lian. Chen Zhu's meaning was very clear. He was refusing. "Elle showed this problem-solving approach to my teacher," the 8th grade homeroom teacher nodded, not saying much more. "It is very similar to the solutions provided by the Jiangjing preparatory camp. If similar solutions appear in the future, I will consult her as appropriate and try to make them available to you all." Chen Zhu was startled, but eventually nodded and politely bid farewell to the homeroom teacher. Ming Dingheng was still keeping Jiang He company at the milk tea shop. Every day, he would wait for Bai Lian to finish school before leaving. Today was no exception. However, when he said goodbye to Bai Lian, she gave him an extra look. And to be honest, although Ming Dingheng was tall and strong, the way he looked at people was sharp, but his expression rather dull. He didn't seem very smart. In fact, he kind of resembled a paramecium. This sense of identification was somewhat inexplicable. After leaving, Ming Dingheng touched his head, puzzled over the meaning behind Bai Lian's glance at him. Bai Lian sat down next to Jiang He and took out the physics exercises distributed that evening to study slowly. Jiang Fulai's notebook was quite useful, at least making today's studying less strenuous. Physics was like that. Once you knew the formulas and theorems, any static image could play out automatically in your mind. When Jiang Fulai arrived, Bai Lian was memorizing English vocabulary. "Are you studying electromagnetism again today?" Jiang Fulai noticed the problems she had laid out on the table at a glance. The questions today were normal, but didn't hit the mark. Bai Lian nodded, closing her English vocabulary app. "Yes." Jiang Fulai put aside his coat and reached for the problems. The answers were apparent at a glance, so he didn't bother flipping through. "I'll write a new problem for you." "Okay," Bai Lian replied. Jiang Fulai's hand wrote down a series of beautiful numbers. His cold white fingers sketched an electric field diagram as if it was printed. Once serious, the sense of aloofness around him faded a lot. He wore a white shirt with all the buttons tightly done up. It felt cold yet peaceful. Bai Lian quietly watched him for a while, then suddenly asked, "Teacher Jiang, do you think I look like a paramecium?" Jiang Fulai. He put down the pen and suddenly felt the urge to sigh. Passing the problem he had just written to Bai Lian, he also explained the electromagnetism exercise left for today. Outside, dinner for him and Jiang He had already been set out. He picked up his chopsticks and glanced at Bai Lian. The corner seats in the milk tea shop had all been replaced with black sofas. She was engulfed in blackness, with her school jacket open to reveal the white t-shirt inside. With her face slightly turned to the side and leaning lazily against the sofa, her complexion was translucent and pale. She didn't resemble a paramecium, Jiang Fulai thought as he lowered his head, carefully pondering. She was more like a cat. When Bai Lian returned, Mao Kun was waiting for her at the street corner. She handed the invitation she had in her hand to Mao Kun. "Who was that just now?" Jai Sheorong had come to pick her up today, and instead of waiting at the entrance to the alley, he had walked a bit further out. He just happened to see Nio Kun. "Oh, that!" Bai Lian adjusted her backpack, her eyes not blinking. "A relative of the convenience store owner. I had something that arrived, and he was delivering it." Jai Sheorong had grown up here and naturally knew the convenience store owner. However, lately, he had heard some news about Purist Street at the Ren family home. This store owner is said to be somewhat dangerous, not a simple character. You should be careful around him. Bai Lian was startled. "Is that so?" But she thought the store owner seemed quite nice. Jai Sheorong, shining his flashlight, had nothing more to say. "Sorry for the trouble Wongshuan caused you." After a long while, Jai Sheorong finally spoke up. "It's okay." Bai Lian replied lazily with her back to the words. I'm more lenient towards people from Beicheng. Jai Sheorong didn't quite catch her meaning but spoke again. Elle initially thought you two would become friends. Bai Lian was surprised. That's rather unlikely. Elle no, Jai Sheorong patted Bai Lian's shoulder, no longer mentioning Ren Wongshuan. Your grandfather has been in much better spirits recently, thank you. After taking a few steps, they saw Jai Heng waiting for them at the entrance to the courtyard. Seeing Jai Heng, Bai Lian's eyes lit up. Grandpa. Jai Heng looked into her eyes. Bai Lian blinked. The principle of the constancy of the speed of light, do you remember it, Grandpa? Suddenly, Jai Heng wondered why he had bothered coming out to wait for them. He turned and went back to the yard to continue his carpentry. Then I'll explain it to you again tomorrow morning, Bai Lian said, minding her own business. Jai Heng, no matter what speed I travel at, the speed of light is always a constant 300,000 kilometers for me. Even if I reach the speed of light and move at 300,000 kilometers, the speed of light relative to me is still 300,000 kilometers. Listening on the side, Jai Sheorong. Is his dad prepping for university in his old age? Bai Lian was somewhat dissatisfied. She put down her school bag and followed Jai Heng to the courtyard. Grandpa, what you said is so vague. Let me explain it to you again. Bai Lian didn't go back to her room to continue solving problems until she heard the answer she wanted from Jai Heng's mouth. Jai Sheorong watched the scene in amazement. Jai Heng finished making a small stool and then picked up the tobacco pipe beside him, lit it, and said, Children and grandchildren have their own blessings. Stop worrying about Wongshuan and aliens matters. It's late, so stay here tonight. Having said that, he took the small stool and went into his room. Jai Sheorong knew what Jai Heng meant and didn't insist further. The next morning, when Jai Sheorong got up, he saw Bai Lian sitting by Jai Heng's bed, waiting for him to wake up. So why make a small stool? Isn't he afraid of someone getting up earlier and earlier? Today is Friday. The last class of the afternoon was Chinese. Lu Lingxi stood on the platform. Next weekend is the monthly exam. Everyone gear up. Also, as you all know, the school anniversary is coming up. The benefactor of Beicheng Middle School will come to watch, and the school has ruled that each class must present at least one performance. Cultural committee members, go back and plan what our class is going to perform. Close to Friday, everyone was very excited. Okay, Miss Lu. Zhang Shais and a group of boys slammed their desks in agreement. Bai Lian had a training class to attend after school. The class teacher of Class 8 collected yesterday's practice problems and played today's video. After the video was over, the class teacher of Class 8 didn't hand out practice problems. Standing in front, he smiled and said, To promote studying, I've decided to create study groups with 3 to 4 people in each. Everyone is free to form their own group. As soon as these words came out, everyone in the training class set their sights on Chen Zhu, Ren Wongshuan, and Ning Xiao. Brother Zhu, shall we group up? Ren Wongshuan looked at Chen Zhu beside her. Chen Zhu nodded. Naturally. Out of the whole school, he only recognized the abilities of Ren Wongshuan and Ning Xiao. He didn't really care much for the others. Wouldn't those two pairing up be a strong combination? In an instant, everyone in the training class surged towards where Ren Wongshuan and Chen Zhu were. Not to mention their scores. Just based on their family backgrounds, one had to strive to join this duo's group. I'm with Brother Zhu. Ren Wongshuan glanced at Bai Lian, who hadn't found a group, before looking at the crowd surrounding her and Chen Zhu, tilting her head. Why don't you guys draw lots? We won't choose. We'll rely solely on luck. Shi Yudong was still absent, so there were 2 more spots in Ren Wongshuan's group. Quickly, the 2 chosen students let out cries of surprise. Seeing no hope for themselves, others began to search for other teammates. Even the reticent Ning Xiao was occasionally disturbed by others, but he didn't respond. Only one person was left unapproached, Bai Lian. Bai Lian was attractive, but Ren Wongshuan had announced her grades on the first day, 85 in comprehensive science. No one knew why she came here, and naturally, no one wanted to team up with her since they formed study groups to improve their scores. In the end, there were only 4 people left in the class. Then Ning Xiao, Bai Lian, Tang Ming, and Zhu Jiren You four will automatically become a group, declared the class teacher of Class 8 with finality. Only then did he begin to distribute today's practice problems. Zhu Jiren looked distressed. After the study groups were formed, everyone quickly adjusted their seats to sit together as a group. Bai Lian and Ning Xiao were already sitting adjacent to each other, so Tang Ming and Zhu Jiren took their seats near them. Tang Ming surreptitiously took out his phone and succeeded in adding Bai. Zhu Jiren leaned on the desk, observing Ning Xiao, who didn't utter a word and kept his head down doing homework. He was wearing the school uniform and had only initially glanced at Zhu Jiren and Tang Ming, his dark eyes peeking through long, tousled hair. His look was so melancholic that Zhu Jiren involuntarily shuddered. Then there was Bai Lian. She leaned casually against the desk, idly propping her chin in her palm, a strand of hair falling over and resting on her fair wrist. She then carelessly put the practice problem aside. What study group? This was like poverty relief for Bai Lian, thought Zhu Jiren despondently. Even if she couldn't join Chen Zhu's and Ren Wangshuan's group, being in another group from Class 8 would do. Why on earth did she have to end up in this group that clearly seemed to have no future? Tang Ming looked at Zhu Jiren, who had competed with him before. Zhu Jiren, let's discuss any problems together in the future. Why don't you add Bai Lian and Ning Xiao on WeChat too? Zhu Jiren waved her hand dismissively, momentarily lacking spirit. We've already added each other, just start a group chat. Tang Ming created the study group chat. On the right, Ren Wangshuan's group of 4 was together, discussing where to go for dinner that night. Their voices weren't loud, but they stood out in the silent auditorium. Zhu Jiren looked at their group with some envy, then whispered, "They're going to the Wan building for dinner, you know, it's membership only." Tang Ming nodded, his voice low. "Aside from those from Class 8, no one else has probably been there, right?" Neither Ning Xiao nor Bai Lian said a word. No response. Zhu Jiren observed the two, a silent and gloomy top student and a barely passing student, seemingly from very average family backgrounds, probably never having heard of the Wan building. She understood, yet it made her feel all the more disheartened. Bai Lian didn't pay attention to the others and simply took out her phone to open WeChat. Teacher, Jiang. It's raining. Bai Lian then looked out of the window, indeed noticing the light rain outside. She stared at the rain outside for quite a while. Then she finally lowered her head slowly and sent a message to Jiang Fulai. Bai Lian, can I show the problem you gave me last night to a few of my classmates? In the CRFS laboratory, Jiang Fulai was looking at the data displayed on his computer. The lab was cool, and he wore a black coat, his pale index and middle finger holding a pen, pointing at the projection on the wall, methodically analyzing to his group. This is the lost energy data detected by the LIW detector before, with red, yellow, and green likely being the single gamma background events, almost no WIWP found. The other group members were listening intently to his analysis. They were able to answer the occasional questions he asked them roughly. With the group members becoming notably more reliable, Jiang Fulai gave a slight nod. He sat down, lifted his head to remove his glasses. I've sent your paper to academician Ma, check your inbox. Leaning against the chair back, his eyes and brows deeply cool, a leg lazily propped up, he spun his phone in his hand, his proud and noble air setting him apart from the others in the laboratory. He was like a snow lotus blooming alone at the top of a snowy mountain, noble, stunning, and forbidding to strangers. He went recorded with his pen, deeply moved. Thank you, young Master Jiang. Moreover, their group was different from those in other labs. They just had to focus on their research, never fearing that someone would steal the first authorship rights to their papers. Jiang Fulai's papers always had room for their names too, even though their contributions to the paper might have been nothing more than helping with printing. Furthermore, Jiang Fulai would also help them find various industry experts to review their papers. He Wen would always remember his graduation defense from the previous year, when Jiang Fulai simply took a phone and sat to listen midway through. The old professor who had always troubled him did not dare to utter a word in the end, and other professors' questions were as simple as, "What did you eat today?" He Wen, who thought he wouldn't graduate, not only did so smoothly, but was also introduced to Jiang Fulai's lab by academician Ma. He understood why everyone was desperate to get into Jiang Fulai's laboratory. Jiang Fulai flipped to the next experiment report, looked up at one of the group members with a chilling tone. Did I not make myself clear? In your experiment report, except for the first look where I can't make out what you're writing, every other glance tells me nothing. In what state of mind did you write this? The trembling member stammered. I'm sorry. The rest collectively lowered their heads and stepped back, to avoid being implicated. Jiang Fulai stopped on the last page, his tone icy. And you even added my name as the advising professor. Are you planning to defame me? The phone screen lit up. A message popped up, student Bai. Can I show the problem you gave me last night to a few of my classmates? Jiang Fulai paused. He shifted slightly, his pale, slender fingers tapping on the phone unhurriedly, pondering for a moment before saying to that group member, rewrite it. Jiang Fulai checked the time, replied with a message, and stood to leave the laboratory. The group member, who thought he would face a storm but ended up being let off the hook, suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of fantasy. He adjusted his glasses again and spoke. This is strange. Everyone else nodded in agreement. After another minute, the reborn group member reached out to choke He-Wen. He-Wen, you've completely ruined your image in my eyes. How can someone like you be on the honored list of Jing University? He-Wen hurriedly spoke. Elle bought a recording pen for each of you. They should be arriving soon. Hey, stop hitting me. He-Wen, the great scholar, were you planning on dazzling everyone with your secret recordings? Then you guys also stop hitting my face. Ow. Bai Lian had always listened to the teacher's instructions, so when the teacher mentioned a study group, she approached Jiang Fulai. After getting Jiang Fulai's permission, she placed her phone back into the desk cubby and copied the problems Jiang Fulai gave her into 3 sets, distributing them to the other 3 members of the group. Ning Xiao in front glanced at her and reached out to take them. Tang Ming was surprised when he saw the papers. Having never seen such neat handwriting, he gave her a thumbs up. Your handwriting is really neat. Zhu Jiren also took the problems. Thanks, but what is this? A problem. Bai Lian looked out the window, her thoughts elsewhere. But when she heard the voice, she came back to herself and tucked her pen away. It's quite comprehensive. Given by someone else, it's very helpful for physics. You can do it when you have time, and I'll bring you the answers tomorrow. Oh, okay, I'll give it a look. Tang Ming stared at the problem. It was about magnetic fields, but it involved a lot of content and he was a bit dazed by it. After looking at it for 20 minutes, he still hadn't quite understood it. So he temporarily clipped it into his book and set it aside. Half an hour passed quickly, but many people didn't leave on time tonight because of the study group. In front, Ning Xiao tossed the problems given by the teacher aside, engrossed in the problem Bai Lian had given him. Bai Lian saw people leaving and also got up with her backpack to leave the lecture hall. Ning Xiao didn't pack up, still pondering over the problem Bai Lian had given him. To the right, Ren Wongshuan packed up her things. My mom has already reserved a place. She stood up and spoke to the others. Let's go first. That immediately won them cheers. The other study groups could only look on enviously. Zhu Jiren stayed put, watching Ren Wongshuan and her group without taking her eyes off them until they left through the back door. Sigh! Zhu Jiren let out a long sigh. Tang Ming was a boarding student and wasn't in a hurry to get back. He took a screenshot of Bai Lian's profile picture to show his roommates. Elsewhere, she really didn't post anything on her moments. If I took a sneak photo of her, wouldn't that make me a pervert? Seeing Tang Ming's worthless reaction, Zhu Jiren pursed her lips, unwilled to pack her things anymore, and prepared to head back to the dorm. Bai Lian stood at the entrance of the comprehensive building's staircase. The rain was falling heavily, sweeping across the entire campus like a net. The already dimly lit school was shrouded in rain mist, becoming even more hazy. There was hardly a soul on the road. It was as if she was the only one in this vastness. The surroundings were filled with the sound of rain. Bai Lian stared at the relentless downpour and began to wonder again if she should have died in Beicheng long ago, and that now it was merely a pipe dream of hers about Beicheng. Bai Lian stood at the entrance of the comprehensive building's staircase. A faint voice came through the curtain of rain. What are you spacing out for? Bai Lian looked up and saw Jiang Fulai standing a step away on the stairs. His figure was tall and slender, wearing a knee-length coat. His pale yet Jiang Fulai was shaking her phone, the usual arrogance in his eyes slightly diminished. "What are you doing here?" Bai Lian gradually came to her senses, slowly patted her pocket, then lifted her head. "I'll think I left my phone in the lecture." Jiang Fulai raised an eyebrow, handing her the umbrella. "Where is your tutorial classroom?" Bai Lian took the umbrella, standing on the stairs behind the rain curtain with a listless expression in her eyes, the reflection of streetlights shimmering in her pitch-black pupils. "First floor, the last classroom to the right, 4th row from the left, first seat." Jiang Fulai entered the main building. Because students were having tutorials there in the evening, the lights on the first floor of the main building were all on. His tall stature and exquisite features were as nobly indifferent as ever. Ren Wangshuan and people like her noticed him almost immediately. What made Jiang Fulai truly stand out was not his striking features, but the inherent dignity he exuded, making him seem unapproachably aloof even as he simply walked. He passed by Ren Wangshuan and Chen Zhu unhurriedly, his pale face sharp and almost edged with frost. He failed to spare them even a glance. Zhu Jiren, who had just left the classroom, also caught sight of him, pausing in her steps. "Who is that?" Ren Wangshuan and her group discussed in low voices as they watched Jiang Fulai's retreating figure. Ren Wangshuan and Chen Zhu exchanged glances, both shaking their heads, guessing he probably wasn't from Beicheng, as his genuine and unblemished air was not something Beicheng could foster. As soon as they exited, the Ren family's business car was parked at the entrance of the main building. Since they were eating together, Ren Wangshuan was picked up by the family driver, who glanced at Bai Lian crouched at the steps, then asked Ren Wangshuan in the rearview mirror, "The master said to pick up Miss Bai along with you for dinner." "Your grandfather, he?" Chen Zhu withdrew his gaze from Bai Lian without interest. He had heard from Ren Wangshuan that Bai Lian's invitation had been inadvertently received, a 1 in a billion chance of luck. Just hearing the name, Bai Lian made Ren Wangshuan inexplicably irritated, her face cold. "Don't bother with her, let's go." She directly instructed the driver to drive away. Chen Zhu didn't bring her up again either. Inside the main building, Jiang Fulai found the last lecture hall. There weren't many people left in the lecture hall by the time he entered, with over half the lights already turned off. Jiang Fulai found Bai Lian's seat, and indeed saw her Xiaomi phone left in the desk cavern. A boy sitting in front was struggling with some math problems, prompting him to raise his eyebrows. He recognized at a glance that the problem was one he'd assigned, and the boy still hadn't solved it yet. Dumber than Jiang Ziju. Jiang Fulai withdrew his gaze, commenting blandly. He picked up the phone and walked out, pausing beside the trash can when something in the corner of his eye caught his attention. There wasn't much trash in the bin. Looking down, he saw a crumpled piece of paper tossed carelessly inside. With his back to the light, Jiang Fulai lowered his eyes, his face shadowed and his expression even colder. He bent down, picked the paper out of the bin, and with well-defined fingers, he slowly unfolded the neat, precise regular script. It was Bai Lian's handwriting, the problems he had written for her the night before, now disregarded, thrown away without a second thought in the trash bin. Jiang Fulai returned to find that Bai Lian was still squatting at the doorway. She folded her umbrella and looked up lazily at the endless heavy rain. Her long hair was casually coiled at the back of her head with a simple wooden hairpin. The strands of hair by her forehead were dampened by the misty rain and gently fell across her pale cheeks. Like a cat wandering in the rain, tentative, hesitant, lonely, unable to find its way home, accidentally intruding into an ink wash painting. "You walk very slowly," Bai Lian said, looking up at him, her eyelashes dark and long, casting a faint shadow on her eyelids. Jiang Fulai handed her phone back to her, took the umbrella and opened it and said indifferently, "Took a glance at one of your less intelligent classmates' problems." "Who?" Bai Lian stood up and walked with him outside. The training classes were full of top students from Beicheng Middle School. There were none that lacked intelligence. She took her phone, the red ribbon on her right hand contrasting sharply against her wrist, fair as white jade. "Sits in front of you." Bai Lian. Ning Xiao, the legend who was expected to be admitted to Jiangjing University this year, consistently ranked first or second in the whole school. He's not very intelligent. Jiang Fulai held the umbrella, his fingers' knuckles distinct. Why did you want to show your classmates the problems today? Oh, we were grouped in fours. Bai Lian walked languidly. Elle just copied a set for the other 3 teammates. Jiang Fulai narrowed his eyes slightly. As they talked, they arrived at the milk tea shop where Ming Dingheng and Jiang He were squatting at the door. Jiang He was still slowly turning the 7x7 Rubik's Cube. It was a spherical puzzle with 12 sides, having many complicated speed-solving algorithms. However, Jiang Fulai found them too mundane to write algorithms for him, so he had to rely on memory to restore it. His movements were unbearable for Jiang Fulai to watch, and Jiang Fulai shifted his gaze away lightly. Jiang He was silent for a moment, then turned his back to Jiang Fulai. Then Bai Lian tugged at his collar, pinched his face. What's the matter? Jiang He just clutched the hem of her clothes, resolved not to look at Jiang Fulai. When Jiang Fulai arrived, Ming Dingheng got up and followed him, handing him the red invitation in his hand. Chief Chen got an invitation from the black market. The auction starts at 7 in the evening the day after tomorrow. You sure it's an authentic piece from Liang Ziyuan's apprentice? Jiang Fulai put the umbrella aside, took the invitation, and his tone was cold and clear. Certain, but the specific origin will only be announced at the auction. Jiang Fulai nodded, his tall figure leaning against the corner sofa as he carelessly placed the invitation on the table. What problems did you guys leave today? Bai Lian passed the problems to him, her gaze landing on the familiar invitation. Because Zhang Shais had used it to play table tennis, it had a noticeable dent in the middle. Don't send this answer to your classmates. After finishing the explanation, Jiang Fulai picked up a pen and wrote down another problem, his faint tone betraying no emotion. Let them think about it on their own first. When Bai Lian returned, the rain had gradually lessened. As usual, Jai Sheorong was waiting for her at the end of the alley. When she got back, the lights in Jai Heng's yard were on, and in the central hall, Jai Heng was drinking tea with a middle-aged man. There was a beautifully wrapped gift on the table. It was Ren Kaiyan, Secretary General. Miss Bai is back. Upon seeing Bai Lian, the Secretary General stood up to leave. Then that's settled, Mr. Jai. We will send a car to pick you up the day after tomorrow. Clearly, he had timed his departure with Bai Lian's return. After the man left, Jai Sheorong frowned. Dad, I can talk to the Ren family. Besides, even though Xiangcheng has bolstered its police force, it's not necessarily able to. Don't interfere, I'll ask myself. Jai Heng shook his head. Bai Lian sat to the side, supporting her chin with her hand, waiting for them to finish their conversation. Jai Heng took a drag of his cigarette, and through the swirling smoke, Bai Lian gazed intently at him. Jai Sheorong suddenly stood up, heading straight outside. I remembered I simmered some ginger soup for Alien. I'll go check if it's ready. On the rainy Saturday, Bai Lian and Jiang He spent another day in the library. They both had things to do on Sunday evening. At 6 in the afternoon, when Bai Lian returned from the library, the Ren family's car was punctually waiting to pick her up at Purist Street intersection. Miss Bai, the driver got out of the car and opened the rear door. Your grandfather and our sir have gone to the auction house. Old Ren asked me to wait here for you. Would you like to go? Bai Lian looked up, her inquiry lazy. The auction house. Yes, today there's an item being auctioned by a disciple of Liang Ziyuan, and your grandfather went as well. Bai Lian stood still for a while before nodding her head. The driver glanced at her and wasn't surprised at all. Sitting in the back seat, Bai Lian casually rested her wrist on her knee and started memorizing English vocabulary through an app on her phone. The driver looked in the rear-view mirror, somewhat astonished. He knew she was from the Jai family. However, he hadn't expected that she would be so at ease during her first ride in such a high-class business car. The car slowly entered the entrance of Baxter Street. At the entrance, the driver respectfully handed over a document before they were allowed to pass. Looking at the rearview mirror, he explained, "A pass is needed to enter here, especially today with the auction taking place. Not just anyone can come in." Bai Lian continued memorizing words, not even lifting her head. The White Tiger auction house was at the end of Baxter Street, where a majestic 20-meter-high stone sculpture of a white tiger was sprawled at the entrance. There was a crowd of people queuing up at the entrance. "Meet you at the entrance." Wearing earphones, Bai Lian got out of the car and walked into the crowd. Mao Kun, with a cigarette in his hand, was standing at the entrance of the auction house to prevent any troublemakers. He had blonde hair and an aura of notoriety. On this street, his reputation for violence was well known, especially since recent rumors suggested that the downfall of Poison Scorpion was related to him. The well-known fighter of Baxter Street, Poison Scorpion, could be taken down by Mao Kun, which indicated that he was no ordinary person. His infamy was widespread, and even those from fighting arenas regarded him with great respect. Today's auction, which catered to global VIPs, had him there to maintain order, courtesy of his godfather. Others who knew him made sure to stay at least 3 meters away. His eyes roamed and soon spotted Bai Lian in the crowd. Mao Kun narrowed his eyes and quickly stood up straight, making his way into the crowd. Whoosh! The group of wealthy businessmen in line hastily made way. "Sis," Mao Kun approached Bai Lian and awkwardly scratched his head. "Elle thought you weren't coming. Why squeeze in with these people? I'll take you in through the back entrance." Mao Kun led Bai Lian into the VIP entrance from the back. The White Tiger auction house was very large, circular in shape, descending from the top floor with 3 levels. The first and second floors were regular booths, while the third level had special ones. Upon learning that the Ren family's booth was on the first floor, Mao Kun accompanied her to the first floor. The booths there were small, with only a table and a few wooden chairs. Displeased with the setting, he frowned. "Sis, should I get you relocated to the 3rd floor?" Bai Lian chose a seat by the window and sat down, lazily resting her elbow on the windowsill. She was dressed in a gradient blue wide-sleeved top, with neatly fastened light blue braided buttons. As she lifted her arm, her fair wrist and a loosely tied crimson wristband were revealed. As she sat down, her long skirt spread across the entire chair. "No need," she said indifferently, leaning against the windowsill, her almond eyes slightly drooping, revealing an undeniable allure at a glance. Mao Kun dared not look any longer. After serving tea, he instructed Bai Lian to call him directly if she needed anything, then went back outside to maintain order. It was nearing 7 o'clock. Sounds of people entering started on the 1st floor. Outside, Ren Kaiyan led the way with Beicheng by his side, chatting as they walked toward the booths. Ren Wangshuan and Chen Zhu followed at the rear. "It's been 7 years. It might not be possible to find," Ren Kaiyan said to Beicheng, and as the Secretary General opened the door to the booth, Ren Kaiyan's words suddenly came to a halt. Inside the cramped booth, someone had already arrived. Behind him, Ren Wangshuan and Chen Zhu also stopped, with Ren Wangshuan in particular expressing disbelief. "How did you get here first?" To enter the White Tiger auction house, one had to go through stringent queuing and security checks. They had arrived early, but it still took nearly 2 hours to get in, only to find Bai Lian already seated by the window. Bai Lian continued memorizing words, casually pressing on her phone's screen. Hearing the noise, she lazily tilted her head. "Grandpa." She paused, then politely greeted Ren Kaiyan. All the while, she did not rise from her seat. Ren Wangshuan looked at her impolite demeanor and then at Beicheng, who also remained seated. She couldn't help but sit down beside Chen Zhu, her eyes narrowed as she slowly uttered 2 words. "Uncouth." Having been trained well in etiquette, she looked down on the rude manners of the Jai family. Chen Zhu remained silent as the auction started promptly at 7. The first item up for bid was a red tourmaline. The beautiful and elegant auctioneer presented the red tourmaline encased in glass. A collector's grade red tourmaline, 106 carats, with a starting price of 2 million. Those present were not short on cash, and the price quickly rose to 3 million. Ren Kaiyan, who had been conversing with Beicheng, finally paused. Beside him, his Secretary General pressed the bidding button. 3-5 million. After finishing, he smiled and explained, "Miss Wangshuan's birthday is coming up soon. Mr. Ren instructed me to keep an eye on an item to give her for her birthday." While speaking, he suddenly saw Bai Lian. The Secretary General coughed abruptly, then stopped talking. Ren Wangshuan and Chen Zhu sat to one side, both attending an auction for the first time, unable to contain their excitement and studying the items at the auction. Hearing the Secretary General's voice, Wangshuan said indifferently, "Why keep buying these? I haven't even worn what you got me last time." The Secretary General just smiled and did not say much. "It's naturally needed. 700. A dull voice rose from the third floor. Upon hearing this voice, Bai Lian couldn't help but glance at the third floor. It sounded so much like a tapeworm. The bid had abruptly soared from 500 to 7 million. 7 million for a collector-grade red tourmaline wasn't particularly expensive, but it had already exceeded the Ren family's estimate, and the Secretary General looked questioningly at Ren Kaiyan. Ren Kaiyan shook his head. "Forget it. With the guest on the third floor, it's unlikely anyone else will compete." The Ren family didn't have the capital to compete with them, and so the red tourmaline was taken by the guest on the third floor. One auction item followed another, and Bai Lian paid no further attention, nor did the private room on the third floor make another bid. In the meantime, Ren Kaiyan had bid on another piece of calligraphy. When the final auction item appeared, everyone, including Jai Heng, sat up straight, eyes glued to the auction stage. Ren Wangshuan also stopped sending photos in the group chat. It was 9:30. The auctioneer, dressed in a long Chinese-style dress, smiled gracefully. "I know why everyone is here, and believe me, this final auction item will not disappoint." Saying this, she reached behind her and drew aside the red cloth. "Where the old general's soul returns, today he drinks in revel. Long pavilion 10 miles short, cold armor's blood not cool. From here, the path diverges, sash of blue enters the hall. Long spear against the tide, the pen sharp to test its might. Long pavilion sending off the troops." The poem was not long, but each character was written with varying speed and emphasis, switching between hidden and exposed strokes, straight and curved lines. The carefree ease after each stroke penetrated the paper, making each character seem to leap alive with vibrant vitality, as if imbued with the warmth of life. Behind her, Wangshuan muttered in astonishment, "Sash of blue enters the hall. So this is the true Liang script." No one could feel the bursting vitality emanating from the calligraphy more than the auctioneer. For a moment, it was as if she could see a woman in white, freely dancing her brush across the paper, completing the work effortlessly. Because the handwriting is in Liang's script and the signature carries Liang Xuan's personal seal, our auction house believed it to be Liang's original work. The auctioneer took a deep breath, stripping away her emotions, and said seriously, "After historical scholars had appraised it, it was verified that the poem was written by his sister for Bai Zhangyu when he went off to the military. We all know the historical military genius Bai Zhangyu, who topped the imperial examinations at 15, aced them at 18, and after his father's death, left his writing at 20 to join the army, taking up arms and heading to the battlefield. His sister hoped he would return home safely and resume his career in the palace. Since he did not return, she wanted to throw away this piece of calligraphy, but according to historical records, it was retrieved by her teacher, meaning that Liang Xuan left us this unique and historically significant calligraphic treasure." The auctioneer continued to elaborate. In the private room, Bai Lian rested her chin on the windowsill, quietly gazing at the nearly yellowed calligraphy. A millennium-old authentic piece, preserved to the present day, seemed to allow one to glimpse through the letters 1,000 years of fleeting beauty. Upon hearing the starting bid of 50 million, she watched so intently that she did not hear Jai Heng calling her several times. Ren Kaiyan had a good impression of Bai Lian, and seeing her staring blankly at the calligraphy, chuckled in surprise. "Bai, do you also study Liang's script? What do you think this piece of calligraphy will sell for in the end?" Hearing Ren Kaiyan's words, Wangshuan also snapped back to reality, giving Bai Lian a sidelong glance. She didn't understand why Ren Kaiyan would ask Bai Lian such a question, as the Jai family member didn't seem the type to study Liang's script. Bai Lian tilted her head, withdrawing her gaze from the calligraphy to lazily return to her vocabulary revision. "The calligraphy lacks force. She was young when she wrote it, and had not yet trained enough strength in her wrist. The starting bid is too high." "The starting bid is too high. Wangshuan, already unpleased because Ren Kaiyan regarded Bai Lian so highly, attending the auction and even inviting a member from the Jai family, and on top of that Bai Lian acting as if she knew everything, now had the audacity to casually critique the disciple of Liang Ziyuan. Do you even know who she is? Not to mention her other accomplishments. Half the calligraphy world are her fans. You couldn't reach a tenth of her skill even if you practiced for 100 years, let alone saying she lacks wrist strength. If you don't understand, can you not go back and read more books? Ren Wangshuan couldn't understand why Ren Kaiyan was partial to Bai Lian, just because Bai Lian looked good and had a bit of luck. Beside her, Chen Zhu was also quietly watching the calligraphy. Upon hearing Ren Wangshuan's comment, he nodded almost imperceptibly. Beicheng tapped his smoking pipe, shifting his gaze from the auction back to Ren Wangshuan before lowering his voice and saying helplessly to Bai Lian, "Don't be ridiculous, don't make arbitrary judgments." Although Ren Wangshuan's tone was unpleasant, she did have a point. If Bai Lian's words were overheard by other people or her fans, even though those from the Bai family were not current stars, if one were to ask a child on the street, 50% of them would know who they were. By then, Bai Lian would indeed be torn apart by netizens. Bai Lian. Oh! Calligraphy required capturing the spirit, and she had been in the zone when she wrote it, but she was young at the time and was still practicing wrist suspension. Every day, her right hand hung with a brick as she practiced writing. Her strokes were nowhere near as steady as they were now. Liang Ziyuan had remarked, after she finished writing, that if she had written this piece a few years later, it would have been even better. Everyone sees things differently. Ren Kaiyan put down his teacup, smoothing things over. Let's focus on the bidding first. Ren Kaiyan smiled. Glancing at Bai Lian, who was radiating sharpness, he internally shook his head. She was too young after all, but he also shouldn't have brought up such topics in front of Bai Lian. The Jai family seemed not to understand the Liang style of calligraphy. Discussing such artistic thresholds with Bai Lian was no different than playing the lute to a cow. Meanwhile, outside, people on the first and second floors were getting restless. The bidding had already reached 80 million, yet no one on the third floor had made a move. 81 million, someone on the second floor bid again. 100 million, a middle-aged voice rose from the third floor. At that sound, Ren Kaiyan couldn't help but sit up straight. Ren Wangshuan and Chen Zhu exchanged glances. Looking at Bai Lian, she lowered her voice. "Is it that director Chen?" Chen Zhu nodded without shifting his gaze. This authentic piece with a heavy history, once bought and kept private, could only be appreciated in moments like this. The Chen family and the Ren family had secured invitations, but they hadn't expected director Chen to somehow get his hands on another invitation. They couldn't owe this favor to him. On the third floor, director Chen held the handle, his eyes glued to the auction stage. 120 million. The price kept climbing. Unable to resist, director Chen directed his gaze to the man sitting in the middle. "Young Master Jiang, our master says, if you could you give some support to the Chen family this time?" The old master said, "As long as you help this once." The Chen family maintained a large retinue, with every penny at home allocated as military provisions. Despite the existence of a private museum, anything that even slightly required funds would often cause the old Chen to beg the Jiang family for money with a shameless face. This occasion was no exception. Director Chen had originally wondered how he could invite this man, but to his surprise, it didn't take much effort. Jiang Fulai lounged elegantly on the sofa, his long legs crossed as he focused on the auction stage, his slender fingers resting on the back of the sofa in a posture both aristocratic and aloof. Upon hearing this, he leisurely glanced over. Director Chen looked at him eagerly. Jiang Fulai turned his attention back to the auction stage. He wasn't well versed in calligraphy, but the writing on the display felt oddly familiar. Tapping his fingertips lightly on the sofa, he pondered for a moment before giving Ming Dingheng a look. Ming Dingheng sat on the far right, pressing the bidding button without blinking. 200 million. All the people on the first, second, and third floors. Chewing on his finger, Director Chen looked at Ming Dingheng with eyes filled with envy and the feeling of witnessing wasteful spending, wishing he wouldn't say 200 million, with the same tone one would say $2. Nying Dinghang looked back at Director Chen, his cool gaze seeming to ask what was wrong. Director Chen withdrew his gaze. Really, why was the Jiang family so rich? He was truly envious. Naturally, the calligraphy was eventually acquired by Jiang Fulai. 200 million was a sum that required consideration for most people present. But for the Jiang family, Asia's richest, it was merely a single statement. The tall and elegant auctioneer brought down the final hammer. Director Chen, who had been watching intently, finally let out a sigh of relief. He resisted the urge to have the piece immediately delivered and thanked Jiang Fulai. "Thank you, young Master Jiang." Jiang Fulai, unruffled, withdrew his gaze, his expression unchanged, his narrow eyes slightly lifted in an elegant and sincere inquiry. "Why thank me?" Director Chen was taken aback. "Of course, it's because of that authentic piece." This was a genuine piece from the Bai family, and even belonged to Miss Bai. The Chen family, despite their poverty, had scraped together 1 billion yuan. If the old man hadn't been unwell and in the hospital, he would have personally come to this auction to escort the artifact back to Jiangjing. Jiang Fulai stood up and gave Chief Chen a slight nod, the epitome of nonchalance. "Did one say I was auctioning it for you?" Chief Chen. "Ah, no, wasn't it?" Chief Chen looked at Jiang Fulai's aloof face, wanting to say something but ultimately daring not to. The auction at the White Tiger Auction House came to a close. The staff delivered the items Ren Kaiyan had won to a first-floor private room. Ren Kaiyan's chief secretary stored them away, and the group followed the crowd out. Midway, the chief secretary answered a phone call. "What? I understand." Ren Kaiyan walked shoulder to shoulder with Jai Heng at the front. The chief secretary, holding his phone, glanced at Jai Heng and Bai Lian, seemingly wanting to say something but not beside the two of them. Ren Kaiyan, seeing his hesitation, stated plainly, "What is it?" "It's Dr. Gao." The chief secretary turned off his phone, slightly lowering his voice. "He's agreed to the dinner you arranged." "Uncle," Ren Wangshuan, who was closer to the chief secretary, frowned, interrupting him. "Let's talk about this at home." Hearing Ren Wangshuan say this, Ren Kaiyan took it as consent. The chief secretary then said no more. Grandpa, Bai Lian put away her phone and took a few steps to the exit, softly arching her eyebrows to bid Jai Heng goodbye. "I'll head back first." Jai Heng looked worriedly at the crowd. "Then be careful on your own. Don't shut off your phone. Call me if anything happens." Fortunately, with the big auction event on Bachter Street today, security was well managed, and there were plenty of bodyguards all along the way. There shouldn't be any major problems. After hesitating for a few seconds, he consented. "Okay." Bai Lian looked casually outside the door, putting her earphones back on to listen to vocabulary words, paying no mind to what Ren Wangshuan and the others were discussing, leisurely blending into the crowd. The moment she stepped outside, Mao Kun, who had been waiting for her at the door, spotted her. "Sis!" He pulled out a cigarette and respectfully offered it to Bai Lian. On a typical day, Bai Lian's demeanor was laid back, seemingly full of charm. But now, those dark, emotionless eyes of hers appeared strikingly cold. Mao Kun's heart skipped a beat, wondering who had offended her this time to provoke such an expression. He quickly offered her the cigarette, trying to lighten the mood. Bai Lian wasn't fond of the smell of smoke, but she bit on the cigarette now, allowing Mao Kun to light it for her. The bright flame curled around the white stick. She tossed her backpack to Mao Kun, her pale, slender fingers holding the cigarette as smoke subtly veiled her eyes and brows, her voice carelessly lazy. "Find a place for me to do my homework." "Right away," Mao Kun said, handling her bag with care, turning to scout for a place. Bai Lian, dressed in vintage attire, stood on the unfussy long street, her delicate features shrouded in a thin wisp of smoke, like a classical girl who had mistakenly wandered into the modern world. Many passers-by kept looking back, pausing to inhale silently. Eventually, a man couldn't resist approaching her with a suggestive gaze. "Little sister, why are you still here so late?" Bai Lian leaned against the wall by the roadside, her posture languid as she tilted her head slightly, wearing nothing but the simplest wooden hairpin on her head, and looking nonchalantly at him with a cigarette in her mouth. With that tilt of her head, her eyes were stunningly beautiful, yet they were soaked with chilliness. The man couldn't resist reaching to touch her face but was stopped by a hand, "Brother, if you want to have fun, why not come to me? What fun is there with a student girl like her?" The woman wore a tight black outfit, her fingers lightly tracing the man's chest, her seductive eyes carrying a teasing allure. The man looked from Bai Lian to the woman. Ultimately sensing some danger, he gently grasped the woman's hand. "What you're saying isn't without merit." "Sis, it's at the same bar as last time," Mao Kun's voice came from behind. The two people at the scene were startled, turned their heads, and saw Mao Kun walking over with a fierce look. The man clearly recognized Mao Kun. His hand trembled as he held the woman's, wondering if Mao Kun had taken a fancy to this girl. "Mao, Mao!" Mao Kun walked straight past him, stopping in front of Bai Lian. "Sis, nothing happened, right?" Bai Lian, biting on the cigarette, looked at the man with disdain and finally rested her gaze on the woman in black. "Where are you from?" The woman in black was momentarily startled, seemingly pausing before speaking. "From Beicheng." "Elle knew it, thank you." Bai Lian put out her cigarette, casually tossing it into the trash can, and then said to Mao Kun, "I'm going to do homework." Mao Kun hurriedly responded, "Sister, go do your homework. If it's too noisy, have someone take you to a private room." After she left, it was only then that Mao Kun grabbed the man by the collar. "Are you blind? You want to mess with my sister?" He threw the man in his hand to his subordinates and said coldly, "Take care of him." Only now did the woman next to them snap back to reality, surprised. "Young Master Mao." Mao Kun recognized the glamorous woman as the resident singer of the bar, lit a cigarette for himself, and before leaving, he spoke. "Zun Chun. Remember my number. If there's any issue, come find me directly. You've done a great service today by keeping the streets free of bloodshed." His understanding of Bai Lian's thoughts could be said to be exceedingly profound. It was around 10 at night when Bachter Street was the busiest. The Ren family car waited in line before it slowly left the underground parking lot. In the van, Jai Heng and Ren Kian sat up front. Jai Heng, with a pipe in hand, silently watched out the window. In the corner of his eye, he thought he saw a shadow and blurted out, "Stop the car." The driver stopped. Ren Kian looked at Jai Heng in surprise. "What's nothing?" Jai Heng observed the crowd and shook his head. "Elle might have seen wrong." He fell into silence again. The car left Bachter Street amidst the rush of traffic and people, and finally stopped at the entrance of an alley on Purist Street. After Jai Heng got out and entered the alley, the car slowly continued on to the Ren family. After Jai Heng left, Ren Kian turned to the secretary in the passenger seat. "Has Dr. Gaff's teaching assistant gotten back to you?" The secretary nodded solemnly. "We're still renewing the reservation for the private room in one building, and I'm trying to schedule the earliest possible time with Dr. Gaff's teaching assistant." Chen Zhu and Ren Wangshuan sat in the back of the van. He had been holding back his confusion all the way, but when they brought it up again, he turned to Ren Wangshuan. "The Dr. Gao you mentioned." Only then did Ren Wangshuan speak up. "You should know there's a major project in Xiancheng. Many people from Jiangjing have come. This Dr. Gao is a doctorate who has just returned to the country from Jiangjing University." "What? Jiangjing University?" Chen Zhu almost exclaimed out loud. He had only heard his parents discuss the major project in Xiancheng because the matter involved level 2 confidentiality, and he didn't understand the specifics. But a doctor from Jiangjing University, that at the very least was the status equivalent to national top scorers of each class. How did the Ren family manage to get in touch with one? Correct. Ren Wangshuan knew the importance of the issue, which was why she hadn't allowed the secretary to mention it in front of Bai Lian, to prevent Jai Heng and Bai Lian from hearing. "If Dr. Gao is willing to tutor us or recommend us to Jiangjing University." Xiancheng Middle School hadn't produced a student who got into Jiangjing University for many years. This time, they had with great difficulty obtained a spot for the Jingjiang Preparatory Camp. Even if Dr. Gao couldn't apply for the camp, they had nearly 20 people competing for one spot in their training course. Every one of them was a competitor, and every post-lesson exercise was counted towards their ongoing assessment. These exercises were difficult for them, but for Dr. Gao, they would surely be extremely simple. With Dr. Gaff's help, their chances of success would reach 80%. The Chen family managed to invite Chief Chen as a guest, and Ren Wangshuan knew the Chen family's significance. She was aware of the gap between her, Chen Zhu, and Ning Xiao, so she did not keep Dr. Gaff's matters concealed from Chen Zhu any longer. Chen Zhu also snapped out of his daze, his heart thumping wildly, almost as if it was about to burst from his chest. "Thank you." He looked steadily at Ren Wongshuan and took a deep breath. "We're in the same group, of course. We move forward or fall back together," Ren Wongshuan said with a smile, not seeming to care much. Chen Zhu nodded. When the teacher had discussed grouping with him on Friday, he had felt a bit of regret. Because Ning Xiao seemed to want to be grouped with Bai Lian, which wasn't surprising as they were in the same class. But now he felt extremely fortunate. Fortunate that he had politely refused the class teacher that night and hadn't rejected Ren Wongshuan when she asked him the next day. Up ahead, Ren Kaiyan suddenly thought of something and mentioned casually, Remember Bai Lian is also in your senior year. If we're inviting Dr. Gao to dinner, include her as well." Ren Wongshuan looked up. "Include her? What for? She can understand what Dr. Gao says." Whenever Bai Lian was mentioned, Ren Wongshuan's smile faded, her expression indifferent. Beicheng might have a special fondness for Bai Lian, which was fine since she was indifferent towards Beicheng's attitude. But why did Ren Kaiyan, who had only met Bai Lian twice, also care so much about her? "Grandpa, do you not know? Bai Lian scored 85 in the comprehensive science," Ren Wongshuan said emotionlessly. "Dr. Gao is an elite. Do you think she can understand what he says? We've finally managed to invite Dr. Gao. What if she offends him with an inadvertent comment? Who would we turn to then?" Her words left the driver, and the passenger in the front seat barely daring to breathe loudly. Chen Zhu, seated beside her, didn't speak up for Bai Lian either. To him, what Ren Wongshuan said was the truth, and there was nothing to argue about. Moreover, even if he took a step back, he wouldn't choose to speak for Bai Lian at this time. Ren Kaiyan did appreciate Bai Lian a bit. He had indeed looked down upon the Jai family. Seeing Ren Kaiyan silent, Ren Wongshuan couldn't hold back. "Are you planning to send the Jai family a lot of things?" Stop the car, stop the car." She banged hard on the window. Ren Wongshuan was always pampered at home and had become willful. The driver dared not ignore her, stopping the car by the roadside. Ren Wongshuan got out of the car and walked along the street alone. She had always done as she pleased at home. Chen Zhu glanced at her, took his phone, and prepared to follow her out of the car. Ren Kaiyan let out a sigh. "I'm embarrassed. Chen Zhu, please keep an eye on her." Chen Zhu nodded. "I'll understand." As the car stood still and watched the two of them disappear into the night, the Secretary General in the front passenger seat finally asked, "Sir, shall we still inform Miss Bai?" "Forget it," Ren Kaiyan said. "The young lady isn't wrong." The Secretary General instructed the driver to start driving, looking back at the fading figures in the night. Miss Bai would not be very useful if she went. At most, she'd get a glimpse of the world. Although Ren Wongshuan's words were colored with her own emotions, she didn't speak without reason. Whether Bai Lian could understand the speech of these knowledgeable individuals was still a question. If something like today's embarrassment, where evaluating Liang Ziyuan's apprentice, happened, then the purpose of ingratiating with the Gao family would not be achieved. Instead, it would be an embarrassment. If only she were as worry-free as Bai Lian, first set a time with Dr. Gao. Ren Kaiyan rubbed his forehead. The selection for the Jingjiang Preparatory Camp by Xiang Chengno. One high school is about to start. He saw the rebelliousness in Bai Lian, but she always listened to Jai Heng. The Secretary General was taken aback by Ren Kaiyan's perception of Bai Lian. The next day, Monday, Bai Lian returned home late but still rose before 6 o'clock. She was waiting for the bus at the Purist Street intersection before 7. There was a seat at the bus stop, but Bai Lian preferred to stand, leaning on the platform and watching the traffic and passers-by. The elderly grandparents who got up early to buy groceries had grown accustomed to this young girl, often staring at the streets and crowds, with one aunt even insisting on giving Bai Lian an egg. Unable to refuse, Bai Lian held the egg in her hand. Once the aunt's bus arrived, Bai Lian saw them off before continuing to watch the street. Across the street, an old lady with a bag was picking up trash along the sidewalk. She looked very old with gray hair and moved in an unhurried manner. Despite her age, she held her back straight. She wore an oversized camouflage shirt with simple floral patterns embroidered on the cuffs. The last few days had been drizzly, causing some moss to grow near the trash can. Bai Lian, with her good eyesight, spotted the moss under the old lady's feet. Before she could warn her, the old lady slipped. "Are you okay?" Bai Lian ran over to help her up. The old lady lifted her head, her face creased deeply, her eyes cloudy but her spirit good, looking very gentle. "Young girl, thank you." Bai Lian helped her sit down by the roadside. Across the street, the number 12 bus arrived. The old lady recognized her school uniform and looked worried. "Your bus is here." But Bai Lian was in no hurry. She squeezed the old lady's ankle and looked up. The rising sun shone on her jet-black hair, full of vitality. "You've twisted your ankle." As she spoke, she applied force with her hand and realigned the old lady's twisted ankle. "You're quite skilled. Have you studied medicine?" The number 12 bus had already left, and the old lady stared at her for a moment, surprised at how quickly Bai Lian fixed her twisted ankle before asking, "Do you live around here? I don't think I've seen you before." "Elle haven't really formally studied it." Bai Lian helped her up and patiently answered the question. "Elle just moved to my grandfather's house." Class 15, first period, 8:09. Lu Lingxi looked at the two boys at the classroom door, annoyed. "Zhang Shi's, Wang Qi, you two just have to be a few minutes late every day, right? You're in your senior year. As soon as you open your eyes in the morning, you should be ready to give it your all." Zhang Shi's and Wang Qi hung their heads, meekly taking Lu Lingxi's scolding. The two of them had stayed up too late playing games last night and couldn't get up in the morning. As Lu Lingxi was scolding, a clear voice came from behind the two. "Teacher." Bai Lian had missed a bus, arriving more than half an hour later than usual. Her uniform looked exceptionally crisp on her, her figure slim, her black pupils reflecting the morning sun, a vocabulary book in her slender, pale hand, her beautiful eyelashes half lowered, standing obediently beside Zhang Shi's and Wang Qi. Lu Lingxi paused, her fierce eyes immediately softening. "Bai Lian, why are you so late?" Bai Lian lowered her head in admission. "Elle stayed up too late reading last, even though it's senior year. We need to balance work and rest," said Lu Lingxi, not doubting for a moment. She knew Bai Lian was serious about memorizing vocabulary and doing practice questions even during break times. She patted Bai Lian on the shoulder, her voice kind. "Don't stay up too late at night. Take care of your rest. Come on in." Zhang Shi's and Wang Qi, still standing by the door, were dumbfounded. Then they looked earnestly at Lu Lingxi. When Lu Lingxi turned her head again to meet their gaze, she scoffed. "What, did you two also stay up too late reading?" The two of them. They certainly didn't have the nerve to say that. Hidden laughter came from class 15. Bai Lian returned to her seat and resumed her usual state, slowly opening her book and completing a period. During the break, Zhang Shi's asked her, "Did you really stay up late reading last night?" "No." Bai Lian flipped open her workbook, casually propping up her right leg nonchalantly. "Elle just missed a bus." Zhang Shi's. He angrily prepared to buy a bottle of iced water to cool down. The cultural committee member exchanged glances with Pu Ziohen, following Zhang Shi's. "As a member of class 15, shouldn't you contribute something to our class?" Zhang Shi's opened the fridge without blinking an eye. "But I can't do anything. At the school anniversary, am I supposed to go on stage and play games?" Ziohen, standing beside him, slung an arm around the cultural committee member's shoulder, pointing at Zhang Shi's. "You're indeed pretty useless, so we never plan to make you do anything. You've only got that face for show. Just stand on stage when it's time and act as our mascot." "What do you mean I'm indeed pretty useless? Wouldn't I be useful in the sports meeting?" Zhang Shi's grabbed a drink. "I'm really tied." "Enough, shut up." Ziohen couldn't stand it any longer. "What a good person you are, if only you didn't have a mouth." They walked back, with Ziohen and the cultural committee members' criticism all along the way. Zhang Shi's didn't dare to defy the two women. Quite a few boys stood in the corridor of class 15. Many people casually whistled and glanced towards the window. Zhang Shi's went over for a look, and from this angle, he could see Bai Lian. She was bending her head down, calmly pulling out a paper from her desk, lazily uncapping her pen. He had a sudden inspiration and said to Ziohan and the committee member, "Why don't you ask the person who sits in front of me?" That person would be much more suitable than him to be a mascot. Just that face alone would be perfect as a front for the class. We are trying hard, said the cultural committee member, nodding her head. Ziohan and I are discussing how to trick. Ziohan quickly cut her off. How to convince her to agree to us? Zhang Shies, do you have any suggestions? Zhang Shies touched his nose. I'd rather go to Syria. Do not be fooled by his deskmate's indifferent manner or studious appearance. As the person who sat behind her, he saw very clearly that the model student behavior was only in front of Lu Lingxi. Want to try with someone from Class 8? At the end of the last class in the afternoon, Pu Ziohan still hadn't found a chance to persuade Bai Lian. Bai Lian listened attentively during class and either did practice questions or memorized vocabulary during breaks, acting just like her deskmate, Yang Lin. In the end, she could only watch helplessly as Bai Lian left for tutoring classes. Today's tutoring class was organized into study groups, with the Class 8 homeroom teacher coming over with a USB drive to play a recorded lesson. Starting this week, the difficulty of the course will increase, said the Class 8 homeroom teacher, looking seriously at the group of top students in the lecture hall. Next week, we'll determine the final selection quota, so the daily grades for these 2 weeks are very important.